I was clearly training in martial arts. How I became a being with supernatural powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Joining forces. It seemed that they sensed the strong energy of Qin Yang. The gloomy mass grave kept making some strange noises. Puff under the horrified gaze of Li Bailing and others. Rotten arms stretched out from the soil, accompanied by extremely creepy roars. Corpses with horrible deaths were dug out from the ground. Most of these corpses were in tatters, with rotten faces and full of maggots. They were all people who were harmed by the mass grave. The nearby villagers, hunters, herbalists, or travelers passing by this forest. Their souls were trapped here forever and could never be freed. These rotten corpses roared at Qin Yang with strong malice. Li Bailing was so scared that his legs went weak. Even Qin Yang, an old man, clenched his hands and was extremely nervous. Qin Yang twisted his head and looked at Qin Dongsheng. "Father, we haven't fought side by side yet." "No." Qin Dongsheng smiled. "Then let's fight side by side this time, father and son, and break through this mass grave," Qin Yang said solemnly. "Okay. Let me see how much you have improved these days." Qin Dongsheng laughed and drew out his long sword. Qin Yang's own sword was broken during the fight with Zhao Weichen, so he could only rely on his own pair of iron fists. "Kill! Kill!" The father and son shouted at the same time, and both of them flashed and rushed towards these rotten corpses. Puff, puff, puff. Qin Dongsheng's figure flashed quickly, waving out a ray of sharp blade light, which was as fine as raindrops, constantly sweeping out, cutting the rotten corpses into pieces. Compared with Qin Dongsheng, Qin Yang was more domineering and fierce. His blood was boiling all over his body, like the waves of a river, surging endlessly. Bang, bang, bang. The dull and fierce fist wind whistled. The rotten corpses kept screaming and were smashed to pieces by Qin Yang's punches. His expression was firm and fierce, just like an arhat descending to subdue demons. The father and son joined forces to kill people in the mass grave. Suddenly, a long knife appeared strangely behind Qin Yang and chopped down fiercely. "Master, be careful." Qin Yang couldn't help but exclaimed. He saw with his own eyes that the person who attacked Qin Yang was Yu Cheng, the former guard of the Qin mansion. His face was twisted with viciousness, and he was determined to put Qin Yang to death. Bang. The long knife fell on Qin Yang and was bounced away by a burst of energy. "Yu Cheng, I'll save you." Qin Yang turned around and saw who attacked him. He roared wildly and condensed the power of blood and ki in his right palm as fast as thunder and hit the other person fiercely. He had the memory of his original body, so he naturally recognized who it was. Bang. Yu Cheng's entire head was smashed by this thunder palm. Qin Yang picked up his long knife. With the long knife in hand, Qin Yang's momentum suddenly changed. Swish, swish, swish. He swung his long sword, and the sword light was like a forest, slashing out layer by layer. Piojun Forest Force. Fenglin Huishan. Each has its own strengths. Among them, the forest force is born from group attack. Under the moonlight, the solemn sword light raged, chopping off heads and shredding corpses. For some reason, Li Bailing thought this scene was a bit beautiful. "I didn't expect that the young master has practiced the Piojun sword technique to this level." Qin Yang was deeply shocked. He practiced the Piojun sword technique for his whole life, while Qin Yang only practiced it for a few months. But the latter's sword technique realm is far beyond his own. For a moment, Qin Yang's heart was also complicated. "Father." Qin Yang glimpsed Qin Dongsheng being besieged by more than a dozen rotten corpses. He roared and swung his sword with both hands, as if he turned into a gust of wind and slashed out. Qin Dongsheng only felt a gust of wind blowing. The next moment, the several rotten corpses in front of him were cut diagonally by a flash of sword light, as if a piece of paper was torn apart. "Your swordsmanship is at this level?" Qin Dongsheng was surprised. Meeting Qin Yang again tonight, he was shocked by him. "Not bad." Qin Yang grinned. "Compared to you, I have lived in vain." Qin Dongsheng shook his head. Next, the father and son worked together to quickly strangle the rotten corpses in the mass grave. Suddenly, the death aura in the mass grave became more dense and gloomy. Boom. A grave exploded fiercely. The rotten corpse aura quickly spread in the mass grave. It seems that a big guy has come out. Qin Yang whispered. Be careful. This guy is a monster condensed from the death aura, corpse aura, and yin aura of the mass grave. There is no reason. Only endless hatred for living beings. Qin Dongsheng's face was heavy. Qin Yang's eyes condensed and looked. I saw a giant corpse more than 2 meters tall walking out of the dust. This giant corpse was extremely rotten, with pale skin and black and blue blood vessels all over the body. There was a woman's head on his chest, sticking out its tongue like a poisonous snake. It stinks. How long has this guy not showered? Qin Yang covered his nose. Qin Dongsheng looked at him strangely. It's already this time, and you still care about this? I'll attract his attention later. Qin Dongsheng whispered. Father, you just watch from the side. Watch how I beat this guy up. Qin Yang grinned and stood in front of Qin Dongsheng. Qin Dongsheng was slightly stunned and seemed a little uncomfortable. From childhood to adulthood, he always stood in front of Qin Yang, shielding him from the wind and rain. This time, it seemed that the roles were reversed. It seems that you have really grown up, brat. Qin Dongsheng sighed slightly. Then, he felt a cold and deep breath coming towards him. His pupils gradually expanded. Qin Yang was surrounded by dark blue airflow. These airflows vaguely formed a phantom of a big snake, hissing to the sky. Qin Yang's body was also getting bigger, his muscles were swollen with blood, and his momentum was getting more and more terrifying. The black tortoise is keeping quiet, while the big snake is rioting. Come on. Qin Yang looked at the giant corpse and growled. Boom. The next moment, he used the glimpse of light and appeared in front of the giant corpse in the blink of an eye. Holding the long knife in both hands, he slashed at the face of the giant corpse fiercely. The giant corpse screamed like a baby and grabbed with both hands. The knife light was too fast. The burst of glimpse of light and the speed of the wind made the giant corpse unable to catch the knife light at all, and it fell hard on its head. Puff. The long knife penetrated deep into the face of the giant corpse. Qin Yang seemed to be looking at a ball of thick cotton. After the long knife was cut in, it was stuck by the opponent's squirming muscles. At the same time, the head of the woman on the chest of the giant corpse also laughed strangely, and her neck stretched out quickly, biting Qin Yang fiercely. Qin Yang snorted coldly, wrapped his left hand with the tortoise and snake energy, and hit it straight. Bang! The fist hit the woman's face fiercely, and a burst of extremely cold air burst out. The woman screamed in pain, and was knocked back by a punch. At the same time, the giant corpse swung its claws and slapped hard, and the air whistled and exploded. Qin Yang burst out the thunder palm in a short period of time, fighting hard with the opponent. Both sides were powerful and their moves were extremely fierce. There were constant roars, and turned into violent air waves. Under the moonlight, the tombstones and graves in the mass graves were all exploded fiercely. Chapter 52. Booming. Under the moonlight, Qin Yang's body was wrapped in the blue aura of turtle and snake, cold and violent, and his palms blasted out wildly. The giant corpse roared, but its movements could not help but slow down. Its body was quickly stained with a layer of light frost. This was the extremely cold effect of the turtle and snake aura. After dozens of consecutive blows, Qin Yang condensed the turtle and snake aura in his palm, and took advantage of the giant corpse's slow movement to hit the giant corpse's head like thunder. Bang! The giant corpse's head was deeply sunken with a palm print. The woman's head on the chest roared again, with a hideous face, and rushed towards Qin Yang with a roar. Qin Yang's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he seized the gap that flashed by. With both hands, he suddenly pulled out the long knife stuck in the giant corpse's head, held it with both hands, concentrated his energy, and burst out with strength, and chopped it down brazenly. Bang! The air seemed to make a loud sound of cloth tearing. The long knife fell down like a mountain and hit the woman's head. The terrifying and fierce force was too fierce, and the long sword was broken into pieces. The woman's head also screamed. Her face was full of sharp iron fragments, bleeding continuously, and was chopped back by a knife. Qin Yang didn't care about chasing, and quickly raised his right elbow, and swept forward fiercely. It hits the bell. Bang! The giant corpse just came with its black claws, and collided fiercely with Qin Yang's right elbow. In the roar of the huge force, a violent force forced the giant corpse back fiercely, causing it to lose balance slightly. Die. Qin Yang roared wildly, his eyes were cold and violent, and his whole body burst out with terrible power like a mountain torrent, and his fist smashed down like a giant hammer. Bang bang bang. Li Beiling, Qin He and others were numbed by the sight. The silver moonlight fell and merged with the dark blue airflow wrapped around Qin Yang himself. He had strong bones and muscles, and his muscles were knotted. He seemed like a god descending to the earth, and his whole body was emitting divine light. The giant corpse screamed miserably. Qin Yang, take the knife. Qin Dongsheng suddenly threw his saber out. Qin Yang took it with one hand, as if he had telepathy, and slashed out a knife like a raging fire. It was a violent fire in the extreme cold. Puff. The giant corpse's left hand was directly cut off by Qin Yang's knife. Qin Yang roared and stabbed Qin Dongsheng's long knife fiercely, like a candied horse. With one knife, the woman's head in the giant corpse's chest was pierced fiercely. The woman let out a creepy scream. The giant corpse seemed to be fighting for its life, and its hands were in a bear hug, trying to hug Qin Yang. Bang! A floating light rushed in front of him fiercely, and the knife light slashed out like a raging fire. Swish, swish, swish. The giant corpse's flesh and blood were constantly cut and chopped by the long knife, revealing the eerie white bones. It screamed and wanted to resist, but was suppressed by Qin Yang. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Yang held the long knife and smashed the giant corpse fiercely for more than 10 times. The whole head of the giant corpse was chopped into more than a dozen pieces, leaving only a skull. Qin Yang was completely crazy, holding the knife with both hands, and smashed down with the force of falling mountains. Bang! A violent explosion sounded in everyone's ears. The whole head of the giant corpse exploded and cracked fiercely, and the huge body was cut open by Qin Yang's knife at the same time, turning into black smoke and dissipating. The mass grave that was originally roaring became dead silent in an instant. Li Beiling and Qin He looked at the knife-holding figure for a long time without saying a word. The weird and uneasy atmosphere of the mass grave dissipated in an instant. Those strange movements disappeared. Li Beiling and others also did not feel palpitations. Qin Yang adjusted the turtle and snake tactics, restored the state of the black turtle to keep quiet, and his momentum gradually became restrained. He turned his head to look at Qin Dongsheng. The other party smiled with relief. Father, you saw it, didn't you? I'm no longer the young master who was ignorant and only knew how to listen to music in brothels. Now I can even deal with evil spirits. Qin Yang said softly. I saw it. Qin Dongsheng nodded gently. I'm really happy to see you like this. It's a pity that I almost didn't see you get married and have children. Qin Yang, live well. Live a more exciting life, live a vigorous life, and live a life of arrogance. Only in this way can you live a meaningful life in this world. Qin Dongsheng looked at Qin Yang, his face gradually turning pale. Don't worry. Qin Yang smiled. Qin Dongsheng nodded gently. After I'm gone, scatter my ashes into the Bijiang River. He came to an old tree and sat down, leaning against the old tree. His flesh and blood quickly withered and turned into a corpse. Qin He sighed softly. He knew it from the moment Qin Dongsheng appeared. As the giant corpses that grew out of the mass grave were killed by Qin Yang, the ghosts that were originally trapped in the mass grave were finally freed. A few days later, a mighty river was rushing endlessly, stirring up water vapor all over the sky. Qin He, Li Beiling, Xiao Huan and others were nearby. Qin Yang held a stone jar in both hands and sprinkled Qin Dongsheng's ashes into the Bijiang River according to his last wish. After doing everything, he took a deep breath and turned to leave Shan County City. This is a huge city. As the sun sets, its shadow falls on the ground like a terrifying beast. People are surging at the city gate. A large number of people are coming in and out, of all kinds. Farmers, hunters, young men and women, scholars, and rangers, merchants, brokers, peddlers, and coolies. A carriage slowly approached the huge city in the sunset. I heard that this Shan County city has a population of nearly 1 million. Now I see that it is indeed extraordinary. Li Beiling looked at the huge city in front of him with excitement and longing. Qin Yang also opened the curtain and looked at Shan County City. This kind of scene has never been seen in Linjiang City. It is worthy of the name of a county city. After queuing up to enter the city, Qin Yang and others first found an inn to stay in. They plan to find a place to settle down tomorrow. As for Li Beiling, he will go to his distant relatives. Night. In the lobby of the inn, Qin He, Li Beiling and Qin Yang are drinking. Xiaohun is so tired that she went back to her room to sleep early. Qin Yang, remember to tell me when you find a place to settle down. Li Tong said reluctantly. Okay. Do I need you to worry about me? You should go to the martial arts hall to practice well. Qin Yang laughed. Don't worry, you've taught me a lot along the way. Some things are useless, no matter how much you say. You have to see them with your own eyes to know how terrifying they are. In this world, you really can't survive without some strength. This cup is my toast to you. Li Beiling stood up and drank the wine and the cup in one gulp. Qin Yang smiled and said, it's useless to say these things. What's useful is what you do. I know. Next time we meet, I promise to surprise you. Li Beiling laughed. After the three of them were about 70% drunk, they went back to their rooms to rest. The next day, Li Beiling formally said goodbye and left. Qin Yang asked Xiaohun to stay in the interest. He and Qin He went to the local dental shop to find a house. After some inquiries, they finally found a dental shop on the street. Chapter 53 Stability. Hearing that the two were looking for a house, a young man with a pointed chin and monkey face came over. My name is Li Donglian. What kind of house are you looking for? Qin Yang said softly, a larger house with a yard at the end. He practiced martial arts every day, so he naturally needed a yard. Li Donglian knew that this person was a big customer. No problem, I happen to have a lot of houses for rent and sale. How about I take you to have a look? Li Donglian said attentively. Qin Yang nodded and said, lead the way. On the way, Li Donglian also introduced the general division of Shan County City to Qin Yang. In Shan City, there is also a distinction between inner and outer cities. The inner city is where dignitaries live, and there are soldiers of the Black Mountain Army patrolling day and night. The public security is good, but the price is also quite expensive. A house with 2 courtyards requires 3,000 taels of silver. After Qin Yang looked at it, he gave up directly. The outer city is relatively cheaper, but due to its large population, there are all kinds of people. It is relatively complicated, and there are also some gang members entrenched. But Qin Yang found that even in the outer city, the public security here is much better than that in Linjiang City. After looking at several mansions in the outer city, Qin Yang had some ideas in his mind. Finally, he took a fancy to a large mansion. This mansion is located on a quiet street, surrounded by residential areas, and is relatively quiet. The area is naturally not as wide as the Linjiang Qin mansion, but there are also 5 houses and a courtyard at the back. Qin Yang went in to see that the house was not shabby, but it was just a little dusty. The price was also affordable, and it could be bought for 1,500 taels of silver. Qin Yang discussed with Qin He and decided on the house. Next, just add some furniture and clean it up, and you can move in. Li Donglian couldn't wait to pull the two back to the dental shop. After Qin Yang paid the money, he signed the contract on the spot. Li Donglian smiled and said, I'll find someone to clean the house later, and you two can move in tomorrow. Okay. Qin Yang didn't need a day. After returning to the inn, Xiaohun was also very excited when she heard that she had a new home. The next day, Qin Yang checked out of the inn and took a carriage to the new mansion. The carriage was temporarily placed in the backyard, and it would be sold later. Then someone was asked to come back to clean it. After about another busy day, the whole mansion was brand new. At night, Qin Yang sat at the desk in his room and began to think about the next step. Now that he has arrived in Shan County City, everything starts from scratch. For him, the most important thing is naturally martial arts. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 5th level, 273/1500, Broken Army Sword Technique, Great Accomplishment, 856/1800, Mixed Origin 1 Key Cover, 7th level, 294/1500, Thunder Palm, Mastery, 786/800. These days when Qin Yang was on the road, he did not give up his practice. He would practice Turtle Snake Art and Mixed Origin 1 Key Cover in the carriage and practice Broken Army Sword Technique and Thunder Palm when he got off the car to rest. However, in terms of cultivation efficiency, it is naturally not as fast as practicing hard in the Qin Mansion. Now I still have several thousand taels of silver, which should not be a problem to support me to practice the turtle snake art to perfection. But entering the inner breath realm is a big problem. Qin Yang frowned slightly. He has a big disadvantage. There is no power inheritance behind him. Every time he breaks through, he needs to find the exercises himself. And as the cultivation level increases, the consumption of medicinal materials also increases day by day, and money is also a huge problem. Stay in Shan City for a while first. Make plans after you are familiar with the situation here. Qin Yang was not impatient. There is a lot of time left for him now. Just solve it step by step. Time quietly passed for a month. Qin Yang practiced martial arts in the backyard every day, without any slackness. As the turtle snake art became more and more advanced, Qin Yang found that his skin became whiter, his muscles were angular, but without the exaggerated swelling feeling, and looked very smooth. His temperament became more and more restrained, without the kind of publicity and rampage, but a deep and cold feeling. This was influenced by the turtle snake art. Qin Yang held Qin Dongsheng's long sword with both hands. He remembered the name of the knife, Lingaiyu. With a burst of energy, the Lingaiyu knife slashed out quickly. In an instant, the whole yard was filled with the cold knife light. If someone was here, they would definitely feel a sense of terror, as if they were being cut into pieces by 1,000 knives. The knife light was as cold as a forest, densely packed, and it really felt like it was going to chop the flesh and blood into minced meat. Fall. Qin Yang roared, and with a change of momentum, he swung the Lingaiyu knife with one hand and smashed it forward fiercely. Boom, the Lingaiyu knife fell in the air, roaring with a huge air wave. A huge amount of information emerged in his mind. For him, this sword technique seemed to have been practiced for nearly 100 years. Countless mysteries about the Pojin sword technique emerged in his mind. The Pojin sword technique has been practiced to perfection. Qin Yang couldn't wait to open the panel, wanting to see what kind of magical power would be formed after the Pojin sword technique was perfected. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, Level 5, 273 over 1500, Hunio and Yiki cover, Level 7, 294 over 1500, Thunder Palm, Mastery, 786 over 800. Pojin sword technique, perfection, poffing, poffing, concentrate the spirit on the blade to make it sharper. Qin Yang seemed to have realized something. He adjusted his mood slightly, and his spirit and energy condensed in an instant, as if forming an invisible force, attached to the blade of Lingaiyu sword. Buzz buzz buzz, Lingaiyu sword trembled lightly, and then flashed a faint blue light. Qin Yang swung the sword. In this sword, he only used the strength of a normal person, and the target of his swing was an Iron Man pile. With a puff, Lingaiyu sword cut the Iron Man pile directly in half, as if it was cutting tofu. Qin Yang did not feel any obstruction during the whole cutting process. Silky smooth. This is poffing is really powerful. Qin Yang was delighted. Just at this time, Xiao Huan walked into the backyard and saw the cut Iron Man pile. She shook her head speechlessly. Master, this is the 5th Iron Man pile you have broken this month. It's not a big problem. Ask Wang the blacksmith to weld it, and it can be used again. Qin Yang laughed. Okay. Xiao Huan sighed helplessly, and then said, Master, Mr. Li is here to see you. Li Beiling, I haven't seen this kid for a month. It's a good time to go and see how he is doing in Shan County City. Qin Yang put Lingaiyu knife back into the scabbard, put on the warrior's clothes, and walked to the lobby. After not seeing each other for a month, Li Beiling's complexion was obviously much rosier than before, and his skin color was not as pale as before, but darker. But when he saw Qin Yang coming in, he was surprised. Qin Yang, how come everyone is practicing martial arts? I'm getting darker, and you are getting whiter? How should I know? Qin Yang rolled his eyes. Okay, this time I came here to tell you something serious. Linjiang City really happened. Li Beiling whispered. Chapter 54, Where to go? Linjiang City? What happened? Qin Yang asked curiously. He has been practicing in the mansion recently and has not paid any attention to the information from the outside world. All the gangs in the outer city have united and are constantly clashing with several major families in the inner city. I heard that many people died and the whole Linjiang city is in chaos. Li Beiling sighed. Where is your father? He is not hiding in the inner city. Qin Yang asked one more question. That's not the case. The old man is very smart. He hid out of the city as soon as he realized something was wrong. He also asked me to thank you. If you hadn't reminded me, I'm afraid I would have really fallen this time. I'm very curious, what did you say to my father? Li Beiling asked in surprise. When Qin Yang suddenly abandoned everything in Linjiang City and insisted on going to the county city, he felt it was very sudden. But now it seems that Qin Yang's decision is undoubtedly very smart. When I was in the outer city, I had a premonition that there would be chaos, and I mentioned it to your father. Qin Yang said casually. So that's how it is. Li Beiling nodded. The two talked about some recent developments. Li Beiling is now training in Lingwei Martial Arts Hall in the city. Although it is a bit hard, he is a smooth talker and willing to spend money. He will soon be able to get along well with his fellow apprentices and do well. Qin Yang, how do you plan to develop next? Li Beiling asked. I don't know yet. I plan to wait and see. Qin Yang shook his head. He still has plenty of money now, so there is no need to be so anxious. I do have a way. I wonder if you are interested. Li Beiling said seriously. Just tell me. Qin Yang did not underestimate Li Beiling. This kid has a cheerful personality, is familiar with everyone, and has many circles of contact. I heard that the county governor's office is going to set up an organization called Zunxianci recently, and it is now recruiting people. This organization is very special. It seems to be independent of the county governor's office and directly under the jurisdiction of the state government. Li Beiling whispered. Who did you hear that from? Qin Yang became interested. I heard it from the owner of the martial arts hall. He said that the treatment in the Sky Patrol division is very good and you can get many secret manuals of magical skills. He also asked several outstanding brothers in the martial arts hall to sign up. How about you sign up and give it a try? Li Beiling urged. Sky Patrol division, it sounds quite interesting. Where should I go to sign up? Qin Yang asked with a smile. I heard that there will be some questions when signing up at the county magistrate's mansion. You can only sign up after you pass the questions and then wait for notification. If my strength is not so poor, I will definitely sign up. Li Beiling still has some self-knowledge. County magistrate's mansion. Let's go. Qin Yang stood up and said. So anxious? Li Beiling didn't expect Qin Yang to be so decisive. When you do things, you must be vigorous and resolute. Hesitation will only miss opportunities. Qin Yang smiled slightly. Qin Yang has been in Shan City for a month and is not very familiar with the roads here. Fortunately, Li Beiling led the way in front. The two crossed several streets and came to a quiet and solemn building. It was the county magistrate's mansion. There were two tall, blue-clad yamen runners guarding the door. What are you doing here at the county magistrate's mansion? The yamen runner asked in a low voice. I want to sign up for the Sky Patrol division. Qin Yang was neither humble nor arrogant. You too? The yamen runner looked at Li Beiling. I came here with him. Li Beiling smiled. Then you can't go in. Your friend can go in. The yamen runner motioned Qin Yang to go in. Brother Qin, I'll wait for you at the door. Li Beiling said softly. Qin Yang nodded and walked directly into the county magistrate's mansion. Once inside, there was a wide training ground, and many people lined up in a long queue. From the way these people were dressed, they were obviously wanderers and martial artists from martial arts schools. But here, no one dared to speak loudly, which seemed a bit depressing. Qin Yang stood at the end of the queue. I heard that the Sky Patrol division is very strict in recruiting people. The cultivation level must be at least at the level of blood moving. Not only that, there are also age requirements. You cannot be over 30 years old, otherwise you will be eliminated. This is just the registration. The subsequent assessment may be more strict. Qin Yang's expression did not change when he heard the conversations of the warriors in front of him. These requirements were not difficult for him at all. He was just curious about what kind of treatment he would get if he joined the Sky Patrol division. Half an hour later, a long line formed behind Qin Yang. It can be seen that the conditions offered by the Sky Patrol division must be very tempting. Otherwise, these unruly Jianghu wanderers would not come in so many people. After all, the world is bad, and if you have some martial arts skills, you don't have to worry about employment. Finally, it was Qin Yang's turn. There was a long table in the middle of the training ground, and two figures sat at the back. One man and one woman. The man was about 40 years old, with slightly grey hair and a calm temperament. The woman was much younger, with a cold face, and wearing a black tights. Qin Yang had been observing. He found that it was the middle-aged man who asked questions, and the woman was silently recording on the side. There was no surprise when it was his turn. Name, cultivation, age. The middle-aged man said calmly. Qin Yang, key gathering, 25. Qin Yang thought about it and decided to say his age was older. His actual age was less than 20. Even in Shan County, there were probably not many key gathering warriors under 20. He chose to do this to keep a low profile. Key gathering. The middle-aged man was a little surprised. A 25-year-old key gathering warrior was a rare genius in Shan County. Yes. Qin Yang stretched out his hand, and wisps of blue air emerged. Not bad. You passed directly. Come to take the real test in 3 days. The middle-aged man gave Qin Yang a sign without saying anything. Qin Yang took the sign calmly and said goodbye. He glanced at it, and found that it was a dark red iron plate with many dense patterns engraved on it. The craftsmanship was very complicated, and it was difficult to imitate. Li Beiling was waiting outside, and yawning with boredom. When he saw Qin Yang coming out, he smiled and said, "Brother Qin, how are you? What do you think?" Qin Yang showed the sign in his hand. "Haha, I said you'd be fine. Let's go find a place to have a drink." Li Beiling laughed. He dragged Qin Yang to a restaurant and said goodbye after a drink. 3 days later. This time, Qin Yang came to the county governor's mansion alone. After showing the iron plate, he went in smoothly. The number of people this time was obviously much smaller than 3 days ago, about nearly 100 people. When the time came, the man came out with a list. "Stand up if I call your name." The middle-aged man said lightly. Zhao Jiu, Lin Feng, Dong Bu Sun. More than 20 people stood up. Among them, there was Qin Yang. Qin Yang looked at the people around him and knew. The people whose names were called should all be key gathering warriors. Soon the cold and beautiful woman appeared in front of everyone. "Come with me." She seemed indifferent, didn't ask anyone any questions, and turned and left. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Sky Survey. The cold and beautiful woman led Qin Yang and his party out of the back door of the county magistrate's mansion. 3 large carriages had already been parked there. "Get in the car," the cold and beautiful woman said lightly. "Where are we going?" Someone couldn't help asking. "To where we should go. If you don't want to go, it's okay. You are assumed to give up this assessment." The cold and beautiful woman's attitude was still so cold. The man was a little angry, but he didn't want to give up the opportunity to join the Sky Patrol Division this time, so he didn't say anything. Seeing the cold and beautiful woman's attitude, everyone knew what to do and stopped asking, and walked into the carriage silently. After Qin Yang entered the carriage, he found that the carriage had been specially modified. The windows were sealed, and there were only a few vents on the roof. Several large carriages moved quickly and headed towards an unknown direction. The people in the carriage didn't know where they were going, and they felt a little uneasy. "Where are you taking us?" a long-faced man asked in a low voice. When people are nervous, talking can relieve their mood. Of course it's the Sky Patrol Division. A handsome young man in a white robe smiled. "Mr. Hua, it seems you know something. Can you tell us about it?" This young man seemed to be quite famous. Someone recognized him and whispered. Qin Yang also pricked up his ears. There is no inside story. The news has already spread in the city. The Sky Patrol Division is recruiting people this time, and the warriors in the blood-moving realm may need to be assessed. We in the carriage are all key gathering warriors. We can pass it if we sign up. In my opinion, we are just going to the Sky Patrol Division to report. You are just overthinking everything. Mr. Hua looked confident. Hearing him say this, the people in the car suddenly felt less nervous. "Mr. Hua, do you know where the Sky Patrol Division is?" someone else asked. Young Master Hua shook his head. "Then I really don't know. I guess it's not in Shan City." So mysterious. To be honest, I still don't know what this patrol department does. I only know that the salary here is very high and I want to get an official position. So I thought about coming here to try, but I didn't expect it to be so easy. Yes, maybe it's to carry out some secret mission or something. Everyone began to discuss. But after talking about it, no one could explain it clearly. Young Master Hua stopped talking, and the carriage gradually became quiet again, with only the sound of wheels rolling on stone slabs. We should leave the city, Qin Yang said in his heart. The feeling of wheels rolling on stone slabs and Lois roads is completely different. The carriage is now obviously driving on the official road. After sitting for about half an hour, just when everyone in the carriage became impatient, the carriage finally stopped. People got off the carriage one after another. What a big deal. It's hidden in the mountains. No wonder no one in the city knows. Everyone exclaimed. Qin Yang looked curiously. They should be in a mountain now. In front of them was a huge memorial archway with the 3 characters SYNOPSIS written on it. Exploring further inside, one could see a cluster of buildings scattered all over the place, with pavilions and halls vaguely visible. Moreover, the buildings were all made of grey walls and black tiles, which looked solemn and deep. The cold and beautiful woman led them into a magnificent hall of SYNOPSIS. Wait here for a moment. Someone will be here soon. Remember, don't leave here, otherwise you will bear the consequences. After the cold and beautiful woman finished speaking, she turned and left. But after waiting for a long time, no one came. Some people began to get restless and grumbled about going out to the hall to take a look. But while they were talking, their feet did not move at all, and they were all instigating others to go out and take a look. Unfortunately, no one was fooled, and everyone stayed in this hall honestly. Qin Yang was not in a hurry and walked around the hall as if he was here for fun. He found that the hall was empty, with only a few metal crane lamp holders. This place was obviously not put into use yet, but only used as a temporary reception place. Qin Yang found a place at random, and then he sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and practiced the turtle snake art. On a towering tower, an old man with a solemn face and strong muscles looked at the hall in the distance. He had a strong aura, and standing there casually gave people a feeling of a mountain. Lord Lu, all the key gathering warriors who signed up this time are in the hall. The cold and beautiful woman walked up to the tower. Well, has Song Lingzi made arrangements? The strong old man asked softly. It's arranged, and we will take action after nightfall. The cold and beautiful woman nodded gently. Well, let me see how these people perform. We don't recruit waste in the Sky Patrol department. The strong old man looked down at the hall and said indifferently. This wait lasted for several hours. The afterglow of the sunset gradually faded in the sky. Looking out from the hall, you can see a mountain moon hanging above the distant mountain. The pale moonlight fell in from the wide open hall door, inexplicably gloomy. The whole Sky Patrol department was silent. Looking outside, only the outlines of some buildings were reflected by the moonlight, which looked pale. It was as if the huge Sky Patrol department was left with only them. Where did all the people in the Sky Patrol department die? Are they kidding us? If no one comes, I won't play anymore. Some people finally couldn't hold back their emotions and became excited. Mr. Hua was no longer calm at this moment. He had boasted before, but ended up getting slapped in the face. He said impatiently, who will go out with me, and ask the people in the Sky Patrol department for clarification? As soon as this was said, 5 or 6 people responded immediately. They walked out of the hall with dark faces. Qin Yang, who was practicing in the corner, took a look and didn't care. He continued to practice the turtle snake art. Others poked their heads out from time to time to see if Mr. Hua and his friends had returned. After a while, Mr. Hua finally came back with his people. As soon as he came in, he asked someone to close the door mysteriously. Everyone, something bad has happened. Young Master Hua gathered everyone together mysteriously and whispered. Young Master Hua, what did you find? Tell us quickly. Some warriors asked anxiously. Young Master Hua lowered his voice. We just walked around nearby and didn't find anyone. This Sky Patrol is just an empty shell. I think they are just playing us like monkeys. Hearing him say this, everyone became indignant. Is there really no one? No wonder we have waited for so long and didn't see anyone. What does the Sky Patrol want to do? Dang 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 at this time. There was a knock on the door outside. Everyone was stunned, and their expressions became strange when they looked at young Master Hua. Just when they said that there was no one in the sky patrol, someone came over. "I'll go see who it is," a yellow-faced man whispered. He walked to the door of the palace and pushed it open. "Why is the door locked?" Young Master Hua stood outside the door and asked curiously. Chapter 56 Fighting. For a moment, you could hear a pin drop in the hall. Everyone was stunned. Outside the hall, Master Hua looked at the yellow-faced man with a pale face and asked curiously, "What's wrong with you?" The yellow-faced man was so scared that he retreated again and again, as if Master Hua was some kind of monster. At the same time, everyone in the hall also stayed away from Master Hua and others who came in first, and their eyes became frightened. Master Hua outside the hall frowned and walked into the hall. Then he was also stunned. Not only was he stunned, even the people who came in after him were stunned. The two groups of people who looked exactly the same stared at each other in the hall. The atmosphere suddenly became terrifying and strange. "Who are you?" Master Hua, who came in first, roared with horror on his face. "You fake. You dare to pretend to be me." Master Hua, who came in later, had the same expression. For a moment, the people in the hall couldn't tell the real from the fake, and their faces were not much better. "This is too weird. How could there be several identical people?" For a moment, everyone's heart palpitated, and their scalps tingled. At the tower, the mountain wind whistled. The cold and beautiful woman seemed to be able to see the scene in the hall, and shook her head slightly. "This assessment is a bit difficult for those who have never been exposed to it." The strong old man clasped his hands together and said lightly, "I want this effect. People who can stay calm in this situation and detect the weirdness are the ones we need." The cold and beautiful woman said, "Someone might die. Who made them really think that it is so easy to enter the patrol department? If you want to enter the patrol department, you must be prepared to die here." The strong old man didn't care at all. The atmosphere in the hall was weird. The two gangs cursed each other loudly, and the others hid aside vigilantly, not daring to get involved. Qin Yang suddenly stood up. He walked to the front of Mr. Hua and others who came in from behind, and said lightly, "Are you real?" "Of course I'm real." Mr. Hua's face was gloomy. The people behind him also gave the same answer. He walked to the other side and asked Mr. Hua and others who came in first, "Are you real too?" "Yes. Those who came in later are fakes." Mr. Hua was very excited. "You all said you were real. Why don't you fight first? Whoever wins is the real one. How about it?" Qin Yang asked with a smile. His proposal was instantly recognized by everyone in the hall. "Yes, you fight. Real gold is not afraid of fire, and it is even less afraid of fakes. That makes sense. If anyone is unwilling to fight, then he is fake." All the warriors in the hall were making a noise. This proposal was undoubtedly in their best interest. For a while, the two gangs fell silent, as if they were considering it. "Why don't you dare to fight? It seems that you are all fakes." Qin Yang shook his head. The two Mr. Hua suddenly smiled strangely at the same time, and their figures flashed, and they rushed towards Qin Yang in the middle at the same time. Their faces turned pale quickly, and their nails suddenly swelled and emitted a cold light, like two ghosts knocking on the door and grabbing Qin Yang. "HMPH. You are so bold and evil. I knew you were not human the first time I saw you." Qin Yang sneered. His body emitted a surging sound of blood and energy, and he punched the Hua Gangzi on the left fiercely. Ahat subdues the devil. The strong and domineering fist force combined with the true meaning of the Ahat fist formed a roaring airwave. A loud roar suddenly sounded in the hall. The Hua Gangzi was hit hard in the chest by a punch. The chest cavity exploded visibly. The whole person flew out of the hall like a meteor. At the same time, the Hua Gangzi on the right waved his claws and grabbed Qin Yang's throat viciously. Puff! A layer of tough and cold air shield appeared on Qin Yang's surface, and the claws could not penetrate it at all. Humayaki shield. Since he was promoted to the key condensation realm, Qin Yang found that the air shield seed seemed to be affected by some of the turtle snake dew. The air shield formed would become cold, and the enemy would be infected by the cold air after attacking. The Hua Gangzi felt something was wrong and wanted to withdraw. "Still want to leave?" Qin Yang roared, and his figure suddenly rushed out at a high speed, and his palm hit hard. Boom. Thunder palm. Everyone in the hall was dizzy and tinnitus was shaken by the thunder. That Mr. Hua screamed and was hit hard on the forehead by Qin Yang. He turned into a white light and flew backwards and hit a wall hard. What are you still watching? These two gangs are fake. Kill them. Qin Yang roared. The people in the hall just reacted. Although they were afraid in their hearts, with such a fierce man like Qin Yang, they all took up their courage and killed the people around Mr. Hua. Those people also showed a strange smile and used strange means to fight with everyone. For a while, the hall was completely reduced to a battlefield, and the two sides continued to fight. Qin Yang's eyes condensed, and he put his hand on the Lingai knife. Mr. Hua, who was hit by him and crashed into the stone wall, just stood up. He felt a blazing and terrifying knife light split in the air. Puff! Young Master Hua screamed and was directly hit by the blade light. The blade of Lingai knife was accompanied by an aura like a murderous aura. This was the broken front divine power condensed by Qin Yang's spirit. This broken front aura made young Master Hua's body cut like paper, and then it boiled like a frying pan in water, and his body was emitting white smoke. After the knife succeeded, Qin Yang felt the murderous intent coming from behind him, and he held the handle of the knife with his backhand, and made a whirlwind slash. Swished during the rotation of the blade, a stunning arc was formed. A white shadow came like lightning. It was young Master Hua who was punched out of the hole by Qin Yang before. He rushed over with a vicious face and was just swept by Qin Yang's blade light. Puff! The whole body was directly cut into two. Qin Yang grinned and chopped it hard with his forehand, as if a cross of knife light was intertwined. Blink! Young Master Hua was neatly chopped into 4 pieces by Qin Yang. This is the fear of Po Feng. If it were in the past, Qin Yang might have needed to spend some effort. With Po Feng, these evil spirits are not so difficult to deal with. Swish! Another young Master Hua suddenly appeared behind Qin Yang and grabbed his neck tightly. Qin Yang let him pinch for more than 10 seconds. Finally, he turned around and said lightly, "Why don't you pinch me anymore?" The young Master Hua screamed in fear and suddenly let go of his hand, trying to escape. Qin Yang grinned and hit young Master Hua's head hard with an iron elbow. Bang! This time, his head was completely blown up, and his knees made a loud noise, and he knelt down directly. Qin Yang performed a beautiful knife flower and smashed the head of this young Master Hua directly. After killing the 2 young Master Hua, Qin Yang looked at the situation in the hall. Among this group of evil spirits, the 2 young Master Hua were obviously stronger, and the others were obviously weaker. They were besieged by a group of key gathering warriors, and were quickly killed. Finally, the hall became quiet again. "My dear hero, what are these guys?" A warrior couldn't help asking Qin Yang. "I think someone will explain it to you." Qin Yang looked outside the hall. A figure appeared at the door without knowing when. Chapter 57 Recruitment. The cold and beautiful woman appeared at the entrance of the hall without knowing when. She looked at Qin Yang with eyes full of astonishment and surprise. "Come with me. The rest of you stay here first. Someone will arrange for you," the cold and beautiful woman said softly. The warriors who stayed in the hall were naturally reluctant, and they shouted loudly and were very excited. "What on earth are you doing in the patrol department? If you don't want to recruit people, just say it." "Playing tricks." The cold and beautiful woman only responded with one sentence, "If you don't want to stay, you can leave now." After saying that, she didn't respond and turned away. Qin Yang followed with a little curiosity. At this time, the originally dark patrol department actually lit up. Qin Yang also heard a sound of footsteps. He looked back. He saw a group of people in black walking into the hall. "It has nothing to do with you. Because of your appearance, the assessment did not go smoothly. They still need to conduct a new assessment," the cold and beautiful woman explained rarely. "I'm curious. What exactly does the patrol department do?" Qin Yang said seriously. "You'll know in a moment." The cold and beautiful woman led Qin Yang through several halls and into a deep and quiet room. A strong old man was sitting cross-legged in the quiet room. The cold and beautiful woman nodded to the strong old man and left the quiet room. "Young man, what's your name?" The strong old man smiled. "Qin Yang." Qin Yang also sat cross-legged opposite the strong old man. "My name is Lu Shengaiyu, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Mountain and River Patrol Department, in charge of the Evil Punishment Department." This time the patrol department is recruiting people, and those who pass the assessment will become a member of the evil punishment department. The strong old man explained. Qin Yang roughly understood. The evil punishment department is a place dedicated to dealing with evil spirits. You only guessed part of it right. In recent years, the world has changed. Not only have evil spirits grown, but many people have been inexplicably bewitched and formed evil sects, spreading their beliefs crazily. The evil punishment department has to face not only evil spirits, but also those crazy evil sects. Lu Shengaiyu said in a deep voice. No wonder there are evil spirits tonight. Qin Yang smiled slightly. It was obvious that the Sky Patrol was testing everyone's performance in the face of strange situations. But I didn't expect Qin Yang to be so fierce and solve the two most difficult evil spirits in one go. How did you know that the two groups were evil spirits in disguise? Lu Shengaiyu asked curiously. It's very simple. Shadow. I have encountered evil spirits several times before and found a relatively simple identification method. Generally, evil spirits don't have shadows. Qin Yang said softly. Well, it seems that you have experienced a lot. But this is just a vengeful evil spirit. There are also evil spirits, and blood spirits above. These evil spirits are not so easy to identify. Lu Shengaiyu said seriously. Is there such a saying? Qin Yang was thoughtful. In this way, most of the evil spirits he encountered should be vengeful spirits. Only the one in the ruined temple was very likely to be an evil spirit. Of course. You should have seen the horror of evil spirits, killing people invisibly. They are violent and resentful, and full of hatred for all living things. Once they appear, many people will die and cause great chaos. The purpose of the existence of the evil slaying department is to clean up these evil spirits. Of course, there are also cults. Lu Shengaiyu said in a heavy tone. It's useless to tell me this. I just want to know what benefits I can get from joining your evil slaying department. Qin Yang smiled slightly. For him, there is no such strong sense of mission, and he must slay demons and uphold justice. He just wants to live well. Then, live a more exciting life. At first, he wanted to join the patrol department because they could provide him with secret manuals of magical skills. Hearing Qin Yang say this, the strong old man was not angry at all, but smiled and said, whatever you want, the patrol department can satisfy you. We have the secret manuals of magical skills collected over hundreds of years, the elixirs made by the best alchemists of the Deu dynasty, the sharpest magical weapons, and all kinds of rare treasures. Of course, if you want to get these, you must complete the evil killing tasks we issued. Every time you complete the evil killing tasks, you will get contribution points, which can be exchanged for various treasures in the patrol department. To show your sincerity, as long as you agree to join the evil killing department, you will get 100 contribution points. Lu Shengaiyu offered his own conditions. The Shan County Patrol Department has just been established, and is quite short of people. Warriors like Qin Yang who can independently solve evil spirits are exactly what the evil killing department lacks the most. How much is 100 contribution points worth? Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. He would not foolishly agree to it, just because of a few words from the other party. Let me give you an example. 100 contribution points in the Xianshu division can be exchanged for something worth 10,000 taels in the outside world. Of course, this is floating. It's about the same. You can even exchange 100 contribution points for 10,000 taels of silver. But I don't recommend you do that. Lu Shengaiyu said softly. It's quite a big deal. Qin Yang was slightly surprised. It sounds like the sincerity of the Zunshan division is quite sufficient. But after thinking about it carefully, Qin Yang knew how dangerous the Xuxi division was. Qin Yang had come into contact with evil spirits and cults, so he naturally knew the risks. But sometimes, the bigger the wind and waves, the more expensive the fish. Qin Yang thought about it. He felt that the Xuxi division was quite suitable for him. First of all, joining the Xuxi division is equivalent to being an official, and there are forces behind him to support him. Secondly, the skills he needs are also passed down, but he just needs to fight for it with his life. With your ability, as long as you agree to join the evil slaying department, you can become a formal member. The group of people who came with you, even if they passed the assessment, still need to be trained for a period of time before they can become formal members. How do you think about it? Lu Shengaiu asked. Meet Deputy Chief Lu. Qin Yang clasped his fists and said, okay. Qianayu, come in. Arrange Qin Yang's residence. Lu Shengaiu whispered. The cold and beautiful woman walked in and nodded slightly. Understood. Qin Yang followed the cold and beautiful woman to walk in the Sky Patrol Department again. My name is Han Qianayu, the head of the Evil Slaying Department. From now on, I will be responsible for notifying and issuing your tasks. If you don't understand anything, you can come and ask me. The cold and beautiful woman's attitude towards Qin Yang seemed to have changed. Qin Yang understood that this cold and beautiful woman would be his immediate superior in the future. By the way, Director Han, how did you control the evil spirit pretending to be Mr. Hua? Qin Yang asked curiously. This is the method of the spiritual master. If you meet it in the future, you must be careful. Han Qianayu said seriously. Spiritual master? Who are they? Qin Yang thought of Yin Heezy whom he had met before. This person should also be a spiritual master. Chapter 58 Songlingzi. The Sky Patrol Division is indeed very large. While leading Qin Yang, Han Qianayu began to give Qin Yang some knowledge. The way of cultivation of spiritual masters is very special, completely different from that of warriors. It is another way. Their way of cultivation is induction. Induction of the spiritual power of heaven and earth, turning it into their own use. However, in this induction process, many spiritual masters will suffer from inexplicable pollution, mental disorders, and even madness. So you should be more careful when dealing with spiritual masters in the future. Most spiritual masters do not think like normal people, so you need to be careful. Han Qianayu warned. When Qin Yang heard this, he knew that Yin He Taoist was definitely a so-called spiritual master. The brain circuit of this Taoist priest is indeed different from that of others. Suddenly, several screams came from the distance of the Sky Patrol Division. Han Qianayu whispered, after you are gone, the test will officially begin. Qin Yang smiled and could only wish those people good luck. Entering the depths of the Sky Patrol Division. This is obviously a place to live, with independent courtyards. Han Qianayu took Qin Yang to an exquisite courtyard. This is where you will live in the Sky Patrol Department from now on. Someone will come to take you to register tomorrow, and you can familiarize yourself with the operation of the Sky Patrol Department. Han Qianayu said softly. Thank you for your hard work, Director Han. Qin Yang nodded. Go to bed early. Han Qianayu still had to pay attention to the assessment of other people and make an assessment. After saying this, he left the courtyard. Qin Yang pushed open the house in the courtyard. The room was simply decorated with a bed and a wardrobe. Qin Yang had long lost the habit of sleeping, so he came to the bed and sat cross-legged to practice the turtle snake sutra. There was no conversation that night. The next day, Qin Yang heard footsteps coming from the courtyard. Is Brother Qin here? A loud voice came. Qin Yang pushed open the door. He saw a dark-faced man standing outside. I'm Zhang Zhao, just like Brother Qin. I'm also a demon killer from the demon killing department. The dark-faced man smiled. It turns out to be Brother Zhang. Qin Yang clasped his fists. After the two exchanged a few words, Zhang Zhao led Qin Yang to a cafeteria for breakfast. Brother Qin, the food in this cafeteria is pretty good. 3 meals a day are all included. You'd be wasting it if you don't eat. Zhang Zhao sat down with a big knife and a golden horse and ordered a lot of food. Various cakes, buns, noodles, and boiled eggs. Qin Yang was not polite and ate with an open belly. At the same time, he was observing. He found that there were quite a lot of people in this cafeteria, but these people seemed to be very withdrawn and indifferent, and most of them were eating alone in silence. Seeing this, Zhang Zhao laughed and said, this Zunshan division has 5 major departments. They are Zhuxi, Zuanling, Bingaiu, Zunming, and Niwu. You should know what our Zhuxi division does. Zuanling division has the least people. Only spiritual masters can join. Those guys are supernatural and will assist us when necessary. Bingaiu is very mysterious. On the surface, it is responsible for guarding Zunshan prison, but it seems to have some other duties. Anyway, it has nothing to do with us. Zunming is responsible for collecting intelligence, and there is all kinds of information. Niwu department is the kind of miscellaneous work, like the cafeteria is their responsibility. Qin Yang didn't expect that a Zunshan division would be quite complicated. Zhang Zhao lowered his voice. Where there are people, there are disputes. Our mountain and river patrol department has just been established, but there are also factional struggles. Deputy Chief Lu is in charge of the demon slaying department, and another Deputy Chief Li Kiahe is in charge of the military prison department and the patrol department. Pay attention in the future. Qin Yang understood as soon as he heard it. As soon as he entered the demon slaying department, he was naturally on Lu Shenggai's side. He didn't care and asked softly, who is the chief? There is no chief. The mountain and river patrol department has just been established, and the chief candidate has not been finalized yet. So the two deputy chiefs are fighting fiercely, just to compete for the position of a chief. But we don't need to pay attention to these struggles at the top, just do our own things. Zhang Zhao smiled. The two of them ate and drank enough. Zhang Zhao took Qin Yang to a loft. After Zhang Zhao's introduction, Qin Yang knew that this was the office of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. After a series of procedures, Qin Yang received a jade token. The front of the token was a word pan, and the back was the word Qin Yang. You must keep this token well. This is the work of a spiritual master, and it has the function of recording contribution values. Zhang Zhao emphasized. After that, he took Qin Yang to walk around the Sky Patrol Department. The Sky Patrol Department is actually divided into 4 areas, corresponding to the 4 major departments. As for the Ministry of Internal Affairs, it is in the middle. The 4 major departments do not interfere with each other, and there will be no handover, unless there is a mission requirement. The place where Zhang Zhao took Qin Yang to visit is actually the area of the Sky Patrol Department. It is not that other areas cannot be visited, but there will be some troubles and taboos. In Zhang Zhao's words, if you can avoid going, don't go. Zhang Zhao also told some precautions of the Sky Patrol Department. In terms of residence, the demon slaying department has no hard and fast rules. You must live in the Sky Patrol Department, or in Shan City, but you must be available at any time. As for salary, as a formal demon slaying person, Qin Yang has 200 taels of silver every month, and 3 bottles of King Zidan. This King Zidan is a pill that strengthens the body and blood, which is very good for warriors. Qin Yang felt that the environment of the Sky Patrol Division was good. He wanted to go back to Shan City to handle some things first, so he officially moved to the Sky Patrol Division. He was about to say goodbye to Zhang Zhao. Are you Qin Yang? You broke my 2 evil spirits last night. A pale-skinned young man suddenly appeared in front of Qin Yang and Zhang Zhao. The way he appeared was also very special. He hung down from a tree, like a hanged ghost, with a white silk wrapped around his neck. Zhang Zhao might be used to the way this young man appeared, and he was not surprised. But he was surprised to find that Qin Yang was not scared at all, and was very calm. It's me. Who are you? Qin Yang asked. Not fun, the young man muttered, and the white silk disappeared automatically with a whoosh, letting him fall from the tree. Then remember, my name is Song Lingzi, a genius destined to become an immortal. Song Lingzi muttered loudly. Those evil spirits in the hall last night, you controlled them all? Qin Yang asked softly. Of course. It's a pity that you guys beat them to death. I wasted my time to practice it again. Song Lingzi seemed a little dissatisfied. Last night was a test, you can't cause trouble to Qin Yang. Zhang Zhao thought that Song Lingzi came to pick a fight. After all, he would not be surprised by what these spiritual masters did. Does this Taoist look like someone who can't stand losing? I just want to ask him. How did you see through my evil spirit? Song Lingzi explained his purpose. It's very simple. There is no shadow. Qin Yang said directly. I said that this is the problem. It seems that we need to improve it in the future. Song Lingzi clapped his hands. He might have guessed it in his heart, but he just came to verify it. Chapter 59 Fishing Boat. After that, Song Lingzi pestered Qin Yang again and asked many questions. For example, did he see any clues in some details of his demeanor and movements? Qin Yang also answered Song Lingzi's questions seriously, and the other party left with satisfaction. Qin Yang, this is the character of a spiritual master. Very weird. This Song Lingzi is pretty good, not so unreasonable. Zhang Zhao smiled bitterly. This is also the reason why ordinary people don't want to deal with spiritual masters. The other party's ideas are too strange, and it is difficult to guess what the other party is thinking. I think he is quite interesting, and he has no malice. Qin Yang smiled. Zhang Zhao was stunned and shook his head slightly. Then you are also a freak. After the two exchanged a few more polite words, Zhang Zhao said goodbye and left. Qin Yang took the identity token and went to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. There was no need to report leaving the patrol department, but he didn't know where the patrol department was near Shan City, so he needed to ask clearly. The people from the Ministry of Internal Affairs showed Qin Yang a map directly. It turned out that the patrol department was located in the Yunyang Mountains east of Shan City, and the journey took about half an hour. The Ministry of Internal Affairs even wanted to provide Qin Yang with a fast horse for round trip, but Qin Yang flatly refused. His feline step was perfect, his energy was flowing endlessly, and his speed was faster than that of a horse. According to the map index, Qin Yang left the patrol department and rushed towards Shan City. After returning to the mansion, he explained the matter to Qin He and Zhao Huan and purchased some medicinal materials. In the evening, Qin Yang returned to the patrol department. In the following time, Qin Yang familiarized himself with the situation of the patrol department while practicing martial arts. The sky gradually darkened, and the afterglow of the setting sun fell on the calm river surface, as red as blood. Zhao He is an old fisherman who has been fishing for more than 20 years. He has followed his father to fish since he was a child. He is thin and dark from wind and sun. He is less than 40 years old, but he looks like an old man in his 60s. Pull up this last piece of fishing net, and we'll call it a day. I don't know why the harvest has been so poor recently. There are only a few small fish and shrimps in a day. I can't even support my family at this rate. Is it because I didn't go to worship the god of water? No. I must go to burn incense to the god of water tomorrow. Zhao He was thinking about worshipping the gods in his mind, and his hands were not idle, constantly pulling up the net. In legend, the god of water is the god in charge of the waters of the Yang River. All those who make a living on the Yang River will worship the god of water. Well, why did the fishing net suddenly become so heavy? Did they catch a big catch? Zhao He was delighted, and he shouted in a low voice. His dark and strong arms quickly exerted force and pulled the fishing net up with force. Zhao He tried his best, gritted his teeth, and almost broke his waist before he finally salvaged the fishing net. But when he saw the things in the fishing net, he was scared to death. It was a corpse. Zhao He has been a fisherman for so many years, and this is the first time he has encountered such a situation. He felt extremely unlucky. The Yang River is so big that people often fall into the water or jump into the river to commit suicide. He has heard of this kind of thing many times, but he didn't expect to encounter it this time. The body was lying on its back, wearing tattered linen clothes, and the body was entangled with water plants. The body was not too rotten, and it should not have been dead for a long time. For a moment, Zhao He was at a loss. He originally wanted to transport the body to the shore and then ask the government to deal with it. Suddenly, he thought of what an old man in the village often said. If you fish a body in the river, you must throw it out. Otherwise, you will become the scapegoat of the body and drown in the water. For a moment, Zhao He was so scared that his back was cold. No matter how he looked at it now, he felt that he was going to be a scapegoat. No, I don't want to be a scapegoat. Zhao He gritted his teeth and quickly untied the fishing net, wanting to throw the body in. The body was too heavy. Zhao He used all his strength to throw it out of the fishing boat. With a plop, a lot of water splashed. At this time, Zhao He trembled all over, and his legs began to tremble wildly. He saw the appearance of the body. This was the first time he saw the appearance of a body. He was too familiar with this appearance. It was himself. How could it be me? Could it be that I really became a scapegoat? Zhao He was so scared that he was incoherent, talking non-stop, and his palms kept sweating. Never mind. Go ashore first, and then go burn incense to Shujin. Zhao He picked up the bamboo pole and was about to push the fishing boat back towards the fishing village. Suddenly, he felt the fishing boat sink. It seemed that something heavy was pressing on the fishing boat. Zhao He subconsciously looked back. The body he threw into the water suddenly appeared on the fishing boat again. It's over. I really became a scapegoat. Zhao Hei's mind was blank. Not long after, a very miserable cry was faintly heard on the surface of the Bijiang River. Qin Yang, how did you train your physique? If I had your muscles, junior sister Yunling might like me. In the small courtyard, the pale-faced Song Lingzi was still hanging on the tree, with an envious look in his eyes. Qin Yang, with his strong and muscular body naked, was practicing the thunder palm in the courtyard. He seemed not to hear what Song Lingzi said, and his palm slapped out quickly, forming palm shadows all over the sky, and a dull sound like thunder rang out. Qin Yang's figure flashed and appeared in front of Song Lingzi, and he hit the thunder palm fiercely. The airwave surged wildly. There was no mercy at all, and he hit Song Lingzi directly in the face. Bang! The moment the palm hit Song Lingzi, with a whoosh, Song Lingzi turned into a piece of wood, and was beaten to pieces by Qin Yang. You guys, you always fight me every time you come here. Song Lingzi appeared strangely behind Qin Yang, and shook his head speechlessly. Is this puppetry or illusion? Qin Yang asked curiously. In the past half-month, he and Song Lingzi have become good friends, and he knows that the other party is best at puppetry and illusion. Of course it's puppetry. My illusion is not well practiced, and I can't hide it from your eyes. Song Lingzi shook his head. On the night of the assessment before, you also used puppetry, right? Qin Yang said softly. Of course. That was the evil spirit that I finally trained with the dead air and Yun Qi, but you guys killed them all. Song Lingzi was very depressed when he mentioned this. You spiritual masters can also train evil spirits. Qin Yang was stunned. Of course. Some perverted ones will even train themselves into evil spirits in exchange for powerful strength. Anyway, spiritual masters are a bunch of lunatics. Song Lingzi complained. Aren't you the same? Qin Yang rolled his eyes. The Taoist is different. The Taoist is going to become an immortal. How could he be crazy? Song Lingzi sneered. Qin Yang shook his head and really planned to continue practicing. A guard from the patrol department walked in. Chapter 60 Fishing Village. Master Qin, Director Han wants you to go over. The guard clasped his fists and said. Well, I'll go over later. Qin Yang nodded. The guard said goodbye and left. It seems that there is a mission. Don't worry, Kit, when you die, I will definitely train you into a puppet. Song Lingzi laughed. Even if you die, this young master will not die. Look at how thin you are, like a sick ghost. Qin Yang laughed, and went back to his room to change clothes. Song Lingzi was so angry, that his teeth itched. He hated others saying, that he was thin the most. Because his beloved junior sister Yunling also said, that he was very thin. But he looked at his little arms and legs again, and muttered, no, it seems that I have to strengthen my exercise too. You are right, junior sister Yunling. Song Lingzi's hand. I don't know when there was a puppet doll. This puppet doll is very lifelike, like a pocket-sized little man, wearing a green dress, with delicate eyebrows and eyes, and a smile on his face. But the first reaction of a normal person when seeing this puppet is definitely fear and terror. Because this puppet is so much like a real person, it makes people feel terrified. The green puppet just looked at Song Lingzi without any movement. It seems that you are really angry, or you don't want to pay attention to me. Okay, then I will go back and practice now. When I become as strong as Qin Yang, you should pay attention to me. Song Lingzi smiled, and a white silk was strangely hung around his neck. With a swoosh, he disappeared directly from the spot. Qin Yang changed his clothes, and walked out of the room. He didn't care if he didn't see Song Lingzi. This guy's mind is erratic, and he is elusive all day long. He is used to it. These days, Qin Yang has already figured out the terrain of the Heavenly Patrol Division's demon slaying department. He passed through several palaces, and came to a hall. This is the demon slaying department, where a large number of people can be seen busy. These days, the demon slaying department is still in the establishment stage, and is not really running. According to Qin Yang's understanding, there are currently 5 demon slaying department members, including him. He was specially recruited, and the other 4 were transferred from the Heavenly Patrol Division of the state capital. The map of the Dao dynasty is too large, and is divided into 18 states. Among them, Shan County is located in the remote Yangning Prefecture in the southwest. The Xiangxin division had only set up an institution in Yangning Prefecture before, But with the chaos in the world, the increase of evil spirits, and the continuous emergence of evil cults, the Xiangxin division, which was seriously understaffed, had to make changes, and began to set up branches in various county cities to increase manpower. Now most of the people in the Xiangxin division came from the prefecture. Qin Yang walked into the Xuxi hall, and found Han Qianyu in a room deep inside. She was busy handling some official business. Seeing Qin Yang come in, she pointed to the case file on the desk. "There is a mission near the county city that requires you to go," Han Qianyu said lightly. Qin Yang picked up the case file, and found that it said Bijiang missing case. "Open it and take a look. About 10 days ago, there was a fishing village near Shan City called Jiangxin Village. Relying on the mountains to eat the mountains and the water to eat the water. This village is close to the Bijiang River, and every household relies on fishing for a living. Every day, the fishermen in the village would get up early to go fishing. But this time, a fisherman named Zhao Hei did not come back from the river. After hearing about it, the villagers organized people to search in Bijiang overnight, but they did not find anything. But on the second day, fishermen from the next village found Zhao Hei's fishing boat. People in Jiangxin village thought that Zhao Hei accidentally fell into the water and was washed away by the rushing river. But in the next few days, not only in Jiangxin village, but also in several nearby fishing villages, fishermen disappeared strangely, leaving only fishing boats. You know, there have been no strong winds and waves these days, so it would be reasonable if 1 or 2 fishermen had an accident. But so many experienced fishermen had accidents one after another, which seemed very strange. The people in the fishing village discussed it and hurried to the government office to report the case. The government office also sent people to investigate in Bijiang, but they did not find anything. But the disappearance of fishermen continued. Seeing this, the government office could only suppress the news first to prevent it from spreading to a wider range, and then quickly send people to notify the patrol department, hoping that they could send people to deal with it. I've read the case file. It's very likely that it was caused by an evil spirit. From the situation, it should be a vengeful spirit. This task is left to you. After completing it, the contribution value is 100. Han Qianyu said lightly. These days, Qin Yang has been learning a lot about evil spirits from Song Lingzi. Generally speaking, evil spirits are divided into vengeful spirits, fierce spirits, evil spirits, and blood spirits. Among human warriors, it is generally necessary to cultivate to the level of gathering ki to compete with vengeful spirits. And evil spirits that have reached the level of fierce spirits usually require inner breath warriors to deal with. However, this is a general concept and is not absolute. When in Linjiang City, Qin Yang had dealt with the vengeful spirit of Huaxiang Tower when he was in the blood-moving realm. It still depends on actual combat and personal strength. Okay, wait for my good news. Qin Yang did not hesitate at all, put away the case file, turned around and left. There are senior evil killers like Zhang Zhao in the evil killing department, but Han Qianyu chose himself. This is obviously a test. After leaving the Xuxi Palace, Qin Yang went back to his room to pack up his things. Then he took up his Lingyu sword and headed towards Shan City. From the case file, Qin Yang felt that it was most likely a water ghost that harmed people. Maybe someone died unjustly in the water, and the resentment was too deep, so he turned into an evil spirit and specifically harmed fishermen in the Bijiang River. But before that, he went to the city first, and found the county government office. After hearing that someone from the patrol of the sky was coming, the government office sent a constable and 3 yamen runners to assist him in investigating the fishing village. "Sirkin, I'm Meng Yang." The constable clasped his fists and said, "The establishment of the patrol of the sky has been a hot topic in the city recently. Everyone is curious about what kind of organization this is. Many forces have sent people to inquire, but they have not received any specific information. Even the people in the county governor's office are curious about the patrol of the sky. Meng Yang is no exception." He is quietly observing Qin Yang. This young man from the patrol of the sky is tall and strong, but his expression and temperament give people a sense of indifference and depth. "Master," Meng Yang made a conclusion in his mind. "Constable Meng, can you take me to Jiangxin village first?" Qin Yang said calmly. "Just follow me, sir." Meng Yang nodded. He liked Qin Yang's straightforward style. Several people left Shan County and rushed all the way. Jiangxin village was not far from Shan City, and they arrived about an incense stick later. This is a very ordinary fishing village, with some dried and fresh fish drying on the open space. The air was full of salty smell. Women were mending fishing nets with thick needles, and children were laughing and playing. When they saw Meng Yang, they all greeted him. It seemed that they all knew him. Soon, a dark and thin old man walked out of the room. "Constable Meng, you are finally here. Someone has disappeared again in the past 2 days." The dark and thin old man said anxiously. "Don't worry, village chief. This time, the higher-ups have sent experts here, and they will definitely find a way to solve it for you," Meng Yang said with a smile. Chapter 61. Su Qun. This is Lord Qin Yang. Lord Qin, this is the village chief of Jiangxin village, Zhao Jiang. Meng Feng introduced the two parties to each other. "Hello, Lord Qin." The old village chief didn't know what position Qin Yang held, but seeing Meng Feng's attitude, he hurriedly saluted. "You're welcome, village chief. Do you still have Zhao Jiang's fishing boat?" Qin Yang got straight to the point. "Captain Meng told us before, so we didn't dare to move it, so we just left it by the river," Zhao Jiang said softly. "Okay, let's go and take a look." Qin Yang nodded softly. Zhao Jiang led Qin Yang and others towards the boat. Crackling when they got close to the river, a burst of dense firecrackers came from afar. There were also some strange shouts. Qin Yang looked over. There was a smoky and burning place by the river. You could vaguely see many people kneeling on the ground by the river. A figure was dancing and making some strange noises. Firecrackers kept burning, and the ground was densely covered with thin candles. This scene, weird, mysterious. It seems to have some kind of mysterious color. It makes Qin Yang feel like he has traveled back to the primitive and wild tribe. Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. "Village chief, what are you doing?" People in the nearby villages think that it is the anger of the water god that causes people to disappear in Bijiang River. Everyone decided to invite a witch to perform a ritual to eliminate the anger of the water god. Zhao Jiang looked at the smoky place, wanting to say something but stopping. But after saying this, he never spoke again. Gods and ghosts. Qin Yang didn't want to pay attention to these. The belief in ghosts and gods is deeply rooted in people's hearts, especially fishermen who make a living by fishing, who are more superstitious than ordinary people. Just as they were about to leave, "No, don't offer my child to the water god." Suddenly, a pale and thin woman rushed out and kowtowed to the witch. Zhu. It was Zhao He who angered the water lord first. "Send your child to serve the water lord now, and the water lord's anger will be eliminated. If you dare to stop me again, I will sacrifice you to the water lord." The witch with the mysterious blue pattern on her face stretched out her finger and threatened loudly. "Yes. Stop making trouble. Send the child to the water lord, and we can fish in peace." Some villagers said as a matter of course. The woman pointed at the villagers and cursed. "Then why don't you send your children to the water lord? Isn't it just because I'm an orphan and a widow that is easy to bully?" The villagers were angry and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? It was your husband who angered the water lord first." "That's right. If it weren't for your family's evil deeds, how could so many people disappear? Tie her up." The witch screamed sharply. Several tall and strong villagers heard this and started to fight savagely. The woman was thin. How could it be that these villagers did it? Even if she struggled desperately, it was useless. Her hands and feet were tied up, her mouth was covered, and then she was thrown aside like garbage. The witch nodded with satisfaction and began to dance again, holding a bunch of incense in her hands, and kept dancing the ancient primitive dance of praying to the gods. Many villagers knelt on the ground and kowtowed continuously. Only the woman looked at all this in despair and powerlessness. "Village chief, it seems that it is more than just a ritual." Qin Yang stopped and narrowed his eyes. Meng Feng also frowned. He had heard of some ignorant and superstitious things, but he had never seen them with his own eyes. Unexpectedly, he happened to see it this time. "Sir, when the witch came, she said that it was Zhao He who angered the water god. Zhao He's son must be offered to the water god. Everyone in the village believes her, and I, an old man, can't stop them." Zhao Jiang said helplessly. "Can't stop them, or just go with the flow?" Qin Yang smiled. Zhao Jiang forced a smile. Sir, we have been doing this for hundreds of years. Is that right? Qin Yang asked seriously. Of course it is right. As long as the child is offered to the water god, no one will disappear on the river. The village chief nodded. I'm very surprised. If there really is a water god. He got angry and harmed so many of you. You didn't blame him, but blamed a victim instead. Now you are even going to offer someone else's child to the water god. You only know how to bully the weak and fear the strong, and you won't resist? Qin Yang asked. Treason. Zhao Jiang wanted to point at Qin Yang's nose and say these 4 words. That is a god. How can you, a mortal, accuse him? But thinking of the size difference between the two sides, he still held back. Even Meng Feng looked at him sideways. He just thought that sacrificing a living person was too cruel. But this adult from the patrol of the sky dared to question even ghosts and gods? At this time, a child was brought over. The child was blindfolded and no one knew what was going on. But he seemed to hear his mother's voice and looked around. Don't be afraid, little friend. Just walk forward slowly. Your mother is waiting for you in front. The witch smiled gently. The child was ignorant and kept walking forward after hearing this. And in front of him was a mighty river. The thin woman struggled frantically, trying to make a sound, but she could only watch her child being bewitched and heading towards the river. For her, this was undoubtedly the most terrifying punishment in the world. Village chief, watch carefully. See who is right. Qin Yang smiled slightly. He walked towards the witch. Qin Yang's appearance alarmed the villagers and the witch. He was strong and had fair skin, and he felt as oppressive as the deep sea. Stranger, don't get any closer. The witch pointed at Qin Yang and screamed. Now offering sacrifices to Shujin. If the ritual fails, Shujin will be angry and you will die without a burial place. Qin Yang smiled and said, I just want to see if Shujin really exists. Shujin is of course real. You are blaspheming Shujin by saying this. The witch accused. Really? I want to try again. Qin Yang smiled. How do you want to try? If you get any closer, Shujin will really. Puff. A knife light slashed out like a wind blade. The witch was speechless. She lowered her head. She saw a drop of blood falling from her neck to the soil. Under the horrified eyes of all the villagers, the witch's head slowly slid down from her body. Puff, the head and body fell to the ground at the same time. Blood kept gushing out from the broken neck. All the villagers were frightened and felt a chill in their backs. They dared not move. Qin Yang walked over, picked up the child, and then cut the rope on the woman with a lingai knife. Child. The woman held her child tightly and was about to kneel down to Qin Yang. No need to kneel down. Qin Yang said calmly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, River Water. His voice was so cold and scary. The woman trembled all over. She dared not disobey Qin Yang's words and hurriedly stood up with the child in her arms. Where is your so-called water lord? Qin Yang looked at the villagers. The villagers lowered their heads and did not dare to look at Qin Yang, fearing that he would stab them again. I'll count to 3. If you don't disperse, I'll send you to see the water lord. Qin Yang said lightly. The villagers were frightened and panicked and fled frantically. Meng Feng in the distance looked surprised. I didn't expect Qin Yang to kill people, as he said, without any ambiguity. You must not be able to stay in the village. Here is some money, you take it, and take the child back to your mother's home. Qin Yang quietly stuffed a silver ingot into the woman. Your Excellency's great kindness, we mother and son will never forget it. The woman was grateful and tears flowed down her face. Let's go. Don't come back to this ghost place again. Qin Yang waved his hand. The woman held her child and hurried away. Old Huang, you follow. Escort this orphan and widow away from here. Meng Feng whispered. A Yaman runner nodded slightly and quietly followed the mother and son. Qin Yang came back with lingai knife. Village head, who do you think is right and who is wrong now? Zhao Jiang's face twitched, but he dared not answer, so he could only say against his will, Sirkin, you are right. So it is not necessarily right to say that hundreds of people are like this. Qin Yang smiled and said, let's go and find Zhao Hei's fishing boat. After seeing Qin Yang's cruelty, Zhao Jiang just wanted to leave quickly and didn't want to contact this killer again. He quickened his pace and took Qin Yang to a river beach. A lonely fishing boat was parked on the water. Sir, I have something to do at home. I won't accompany you, Zhao Jiang whispered. Qin Yang didn't even look at him. Meng Feng waved his hand and said, then you go back first. Qin Yang pulled up the fishing boat and checked it carefully. I've also checked it before. Except for some water plants, there are no special traces on the boat. Meng Feng said softly. Well, either he slipped or was murdered. Qin Yang nodded. Then how is Lord Qin going to deal with it? Meng Feng said softly. No risk, no gain. Qin Yang looked at the vast and calm Bijiang River. Bijiang River is a big river. On the vast water, there is only a lonely fishing boat floating on it. A man wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat sat on the bow of the boat, holding a green fishing rod and fishing. Next to him was a small stove. The charcoal fire was sizzling, and a pot of old wine was heated. The sun was setting, and the setting sun fell on the river and on the face of the fisherman. It was a white face. Why did I catch nothing when I was fishing in my previous life? I have traveled through time, but I still catch nothing when I'm fishing? Qin Yang was a little depressed. He fished here for a day, but didn't even catch a white bait. Forget it. It's getting dark. Let's go fishing tomorrow. When Qin Yang was about to retract the rod, he felt the rod sink, as if he had caught something huge. Here it comes. Qin Yang was delighted and exerted force with one hand. The fishing rod bent into a U-shape, and with a bang, a heavy corpse was caught by Qin Yang. Seeing the corpse, Qin Yang was not afraid, and even became excited. My fishing rod doesn't have a hook, but I caught you. This is really a willing bait. Qin Yang smiled. He originally wanted to try to see if he could catch the evil spirit in the river. Unexpectedly, it really succeeded. The corpse was wet, covered with water plants, and fell on the boat board without moving. Qin Yang turned it over and took a look. Wow. The facial features were surprisingly his own. The same trick again. Can you be a little innovative? Qin Yang saw his own corpse and was not afraid at all. He punched it directly. He had seen this scene at the masquerade before. This kind of illusion would basically have no effect on him, because he knew he was still alive. Even if the world was destroyed, he would still be alive. The moment the fist landed, the corpse suddenly opened its eyes and rushed towards Qin Yang fiercely. Thunder. Qin Yang roared. He turned his fist into a palm, and the surging power burst out fiercely, slapping the corpse's head. Now his thunder palm really has that kind of fierce burst, just like the feeling of thunder. A dull thunder sound came out of thin air. Bang! The corpse screamed, and its head was distorted and twisted by Qin Yang, and it broke the boat plank. The strange corpse screamed and tried to stand up. A flash of knife light slashed down, fiercely splitting the head of this strange corpse in half. A rotten claw suddenly stretched out from under the cold river water, grabbed Qin Yang's ankle, and tried to drag him into the water. Qin Yang sneered, exerted force on his thigh, and lifted it up suddenly. Plop! The knotted power burst out, directly bringing the rotten corpse under the water to the surface. Qin Yang's blood surged like a tide. He held the knife with both hands, forming a huge force, and slashed down fiercely, breaking the army, and falling into the mountain. Ling Yu's blade was full of strong murderous aura. That was the breaking aura condensed by Qin Yang's spirit. The sound of cloth tearing. The corpse was cut into two halves by Qin Yang in midair. Bang bang bang, the boat shook violently. It was as if there were several fierce sharks under the boat constantly hitting it. This fishing boat was small and the workmanship was very ordinary. After more than 10 hits, it exploded and cracked. Qin Yang had no choice but to fall into the cold river water. Gurgle bubbles kept coming out of his mouth. But in this deep water, he didn't feel any discomfort. The turtle snake energy quickly circulated in the body, as if forming an internal circulation, without the need to breathe, and even without feeling the water pressure. The turtle snake itself was hiding in the deep sea. Although the Bijiang River is large, it is like a shallow beach to the turtle snake. At this time, a rotten figure silently appeared behind Qin Yang, hugged him tightly, and tied his neck. Two more figures like water ghosts rushed towards Qin Yang, their faces twisted and hideous. Bang! A strong energy burst directly on Qin Yang, shaking the rotten evil spirits behind him away. At the same time, he held the Lingyu knife in both hands, and the knife light was as dense and dense as a forest. Because of the fast speed, it even cut through the water flow, forming a vacuum. In less than a breath, the two water ghosts were chopped into large and small pieces of meat by Qin Yang. But then, more rotten figures appeared, swimming from all directions, biting Qin Yang fiercely. So many these should be the souls who died underwater. They turned into evil spirits. Qin Yang frowned, and the Lingyu knife in his hand showed no mercy, turning into a cold knife light and slashing out. The broken front divine ability faced these evil spirits like cutting paper. In the blink of an eye, the dozen or so rotten corpses were cut into pieces under the icy river water. Chapter 63 Confrontation. Qin Yang continued to swim deeper into the cold and deep water. He killed only ordinary evil spirits. These evil spirits were not even vengeful spirits. To kill so many people, there must be something more terrifying. Now that he was here, Qin Yang did not want his first mission to end in failure. He had turtle and snake energy circulating in his body, so he did not need to breathe and sank quickly. When he fell to the bottom of the Yang River, he was slightly stunned. He saw a mysterious and strange pattern painted on the bottom of the river. These patterns were densely packed with lines, and at a glance, these lines quickly grew larger in his mind, and turned into a ghost head with a blue face and fangs, biting him fiercely, looking for death. Qin Yang could feel the water flow becoming turbulent, which meant that this was not an illusion. He roared, held the knife with both hands, condensed the breaking edge of the aura, and slashed straight out. The cold water was cut by the edge of the Lingyu knife. Plop! The blue-faced ghost screamed, and was slashed away by Qin Yang. Qin Yang sneered, swung his hands rapidly, and the Lingyu sword turned into a gust of wind and swept out. Puff! The blue-faced ghost was directly cut in half by the Lingyu sword, and turned into a turbulent stream and dispersed. What the hell is this? Qin Yang looked at the strange pattern in the depths. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that it was like the legendary formation. Could it be that the evil spirit born in Yang was secretly controlled by someone? Qin Yang's eyes flickered. When he got closer, he saw a small blue flag inserted in the center of the formation pattern at the bottom of the river. The surface of this small flag was embroidered with some hideous ghosts, emitting a faint blue light and an evil and cold breath. It seems that someone is really messing around. This method should be done by a spiritual master. Qin Yang's feet landed on the bottom of the river, thinking in his heart. People are divided into good and bad. This is even more true for spiritual masters. Their personalities are more extreme than ordinary people, and they are more indifferent to life. It is not surprising that they do such things. But compared to the evil spirits, the spiritual master obviously did it more obscurely. Qin Yang's eyes focused, and he walked towards the blue flag. Just as he raised the Lingyu knife to cut it off, a light blue water arrow appeared strangely and shot silently at Qin Yang's back. Who is it? Qin Yang felt the fluctuations of the water flow, turned around and chopped it with a knife. Puff! The water arrow was chopped into pieces by his knife. But when he turned around, he didn't see anyone, only the cold and deep water flow. The next second, an invisible water flow exploded on him fiercely. Boom! The water flow was surging and turbulent. Qin Yang's figure was pushed back more than 10 steps. Why don't you dare to see me? Qin Yang roared, constantly looking around. Bang! He seemed to sense something, but his reaction was still slow, and another cold water flow exploded on his chest. This time, Qin Yang's body was covered with a strong air shield, which completely blocked the water flow. The next moment, countless water flows kept drawing on him. Qin Yang was like a reef, towering and motionless. No matter how the invisible water flow hit him, he did not move at all. The nearly perfected Hunyo and Yaki shield was too tough to be shaken by the water flow. However, Qin Yang was naturally irritated, because he could only passively take the beating. He took a deep breath. The next moment, his aura changed. From violent anger to indifference and calmness, as quiet as an ancient well. Qin Yang entered a state of deep concentration. In this state, his perception ability was improved. Soon, his eyes were locked on a dark water area. Whoosh! His figure flashed and rushed towards the water area quickly. The Lingyu sword turned into a white streak and slashed out. A nearly transparent figure was forced out by Qin Yang. This was a pale young man with a pair of dead fish eyes. "You can actually find me." The young man sneered and pinched the seal with both hands. The water flow was turbulent, and more than a dozen blow arrows condensed and shot at Qin Yang. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Yang roared, and the fleeting light burst out directly, letting the arrows of water hit him, and slashed with a knife. Puff. The young man's eyes were stunned, and he was directly cut into pieces by the Lingai knife, and then turned into water and dissipated. Qin Yang seemed to have expected it, and a cold and gloomy breath burst out from him fiercely. The black turtle kept quiet, and the big snake rioted. The turtle and snake energy in his body was like a big snake running wild, spreading from his body in an instant. The turtle and snake energy was cold and gloomy, and the water was stained with a layer of white frost. A figure was caught off guard by the turtle and snake energy and appeared directly. Damn it. The young man's face showed panic. He was less than 10 meters away from Qin Yang. With the opponent's terrible speed, he would have his neck cut off before he could cast a spell. The spiritual master is not evil, and it's okay to break his neck. The next moment, a cold and gloomy knife light broke through the cold water and attacked. The aura of the moon-shattering sword seemed to turn into a giant blue snake biting. Explode. A flash of blue light suddenly blocked the young man. It was the blue flag inserted deep under the water. The flag expanded rapidly, and then turned into a fierce water flow and exploded. Boom. The water flow of dozens of feet in radius was shattered into mist. On the shore, Meng Feng's Heng was observing with 3 Yamen runners. "Boss, Lord Qin has been in the water for so long, nothing will happen to him," a Yamen runner whispered. Qin Yang was just floating in the middle of the river in a boat, and they could only see a black dot from a distance. Later, there seemed to be a fight. The fishing boat broke, and Qin Yang was forced to go into the water, and then there was no movement, and Qin Yang did not come ashore. "Wait a little longer," Meng Feng said softly. Even if Qin Yang really got into trouble, he would have no way to deal with it, so he might as well wait a little longer. Because Qin Yang's strength was obviously much higher than his own, even he got into trouble underwater, and he would be sending himself to death. Boom. There was a loud noise. A column of water exploded fiercely from the water surface. The originally calm water surface was rippling. A wet figure jumped out and landed on the shore. "Let's go and take a look," Meng Feng whispered. He led his men to go quickly. Qin Yang looked around and reluctantly put away the Lingai sword. He knew that the mysterious spiritual master should have escaped. He was a little depressed that he could not keep the other party. "Master Qin, are you okay?" Meng Feng walked over and asked. "It's okay. I have killed the evil spirit that caused trouble in Bijiang. No more fishermen should get into trouble next," Qin Yang said lightly. He did not reveal the matter of the spiritual master. "Master Qin is really powerful." Meng Feng clasped his fists. "Go back first," Qin Yang said in a deep voice. The two sides separated at the city gate. Meng Feng returned to the government office to report, and Qin Yang also needed to return to the patrol department. When he returned, it was already dark, and he could only wait until tomorrow to report the mission. Just as he walked into his courtyard, he saw Song Lingzi was still there. He tried to lift the stone lock with both hands, but found that he couldn't lift it. Then he saw Qin Yang coming in, and put it down with an embarrassed look. "You're back so soon." Song Lingzi was speechless. He thought Qin Yang wouldn't be here tonight, so he came to practice with the stone lock that Qin Yang used to train his blood and ki. Unexpectedly, he couldn't lift it, and Qin Yang saw such an embarrassing scene. Chapter 64. That mission is not very troublesome, but you sneaked to my place in the middle of the night and wanted to steal the stone lock. Qin Yang looked at him strangely. "What do you mean by stealing? Your stone lock is so heavy, how can I steal it?" Song Lingzi said speechlessly. "That's right. You really should exercise more." Qin Yang nodded. "No. Who did you fight with?" Song Lingzi sniffed at Qin Yang. "A spiritual master." Qin Yang's eyes lit up and told him what happened under the Bijiang River. Song Lingzi is a genuine spiritual master. Asking him should be able to answer many questions for himself. "You ruined someone's big business." Song Lingzi's face was full of gloating. "What big business?" Qin Yang asked curiously. "That guy probably wanted to make a magic weapon. The embryo of the magic weapon has been made. It will be successful if it is placed under the river to absorb more ghosts. I didn't expect it to be destroyed by you. Magic weapons are not easy to make. It wastes money and time. I guess that guy wants to eat you. Song Lingzi laughed. So he wanted to make a magic weapon. Do you know this person? Qin Yang described the appearance of the spiritual master. It's him. Song Lingzi was a little surprised. Do you really know him? Qin Yang looked surprised. He just asked casually, but he didn't expect Song Lingzi to really know him. I really know him. Taoist. Qin Yang, you are in a bit of trouble now. You provoked such a guy. Song Lingzi laughed. Tell me about it. Qin Yang said softly. That kid should be called Wang Fu. He seems to be a direct descendant of a big family in Shan County. He has been practicing with a spiritual master since he was a child. I heard that he has reached the peak of the soul condensation realm at a young age. I know this person because he came to the patrol department once before and met him. Song Lingzi smiled. Why did he come to the patrol department? Qin Yang asked curiously. I heard that he wants to join our Zuanling department. Old man Zhang Liao is also very satisfied with him. I guess he will come in a few days. Song Lingzi lowered his voice. Yuzuanling department also accepts such a thing that harms people. Qin Yang frowned. There is no way. There are too few spiritual masters. As long as you don't do anything that will anger the heavens and the people, harming a few people is nothing at all. Even if you report this to Han Qianayu, it is estimated that there will be no follow-up. At most, you will warn this kid. After all, in addition to being a spiritual master, this kid's family is also very powerful in Shan County. Song Lingzi shrugged. Is that so? Qin Yang frowned slightly. Just as Song Lingzi said, when Wang Fu enters the Sky Patrol Division, he will probably suppress him everywhere. Moreover, the spiritual master's methods are strange, and it is hard to say what methods Wang Fu will use to deal with him. It's really a bit difficult to deal with. Song Lingzi, you said that Wang Fu is at the soul condensation realm. What do you mean by that? Qin Yang asked. It's very simple. Soul condensation is almost equivalent to the key gathering of you warriors. The next step is human soul, earth soul, and heaven soul. This kid has cultivated to the peak of soul condensation at such a young age, and his talent is not much worse than that of Dao Yi. I feel that he joined the Sky Patrol Division, probably because he wants to use the resources of the Sky Patrol Division to break through to the human soul. Then he will be in danger. Song Lingzi gloated more and more, and he couldn't wait to see Qin Yang and Wang Fu fight. Well, ignore him for now. We'll talk about it later. Qin Yang said helplessly. Don't worry, I'm here. I guarantee that guy won't dare to do anything to you. It's so late, I'm going to go back to sleep. Song Lingzi yawned, and his figure disappeared strangely in the courtyard again. Qin Yang returned to the room with an expressionless face. Shan in a city, Wang family. Damn guy. How dare you ruin my big plan. In the dark room, Wang Fu, who had a pair of dead fish eyes, had a vicious expression. Puff. Suddenly, he spit out a mouthful of dark red blood again. He used his mind to sacrifice the blue flag, and now it was destroyed by Qin Yang. As the owner, he was not feeling well. Damn. This person should not be from the government office. With such strength, he should be from the patrol department of the evil slaying department. Wang Fu wiped the blood from his mouth. I'll remember this revenge. When I join the patrol department and advance to the human soul realm, I will train you into a corpse soul. Wang Fu growled like a beast. He had been living a life of luxury since he was young, and he also had a high talent for cultivation. He was noticed by a master and was able to cultivate spiritual skills. For more than 20 years, he had been smooth sailing and had never encountered any setbacks. This time, it was the first time in his life that he suffered such a big loss. He almost lost his life, and in the end he could only escape by detonating a magic weapon. He naturally resented Qin Yang even more. So, the evil spirit under the Bijiang River was eliminated by you? In the Yuxi Hall, Han Qianayu listened to Qin Yang's report on the missing fisherman in the Bijiang River. Yes, it was just an evil spirit doing evil underwater. I killed it after I went into the water. Qin Yang nodded. Meng Feng and others were on the shore that day, and they had no way of knowing what happened underwater. Well, you did a good job. Wait until the case file from the county magistrate's office is delivered, and this task will be completed. Han Qianayu nodded. According to the information sent by the government office, she also felt that it was the evil spirit that was causing trouble. However, according to the regulations of the UC department, the local government office needs to send the final investigation results before it can be completed. This is also to prevent the evil killers from lying secretly. Generally speaking, this time will not be too long. Like this Yang missing case, as long as no fishermen disappear mysteriously in the next few days, the government will naturally regard it as a task completed and send the case file. Okay. Qin Yang nodded and then said, Director Han, I will go back to Shan City to deal with some things in the next few days. Go, I will call you when there is a task. Han Qianyu said without raising her head. Now the patrol department is still in the establishment stage, and she is really busy. After Qin Yang left the Yuxi Hall, he left the patrol department without even taking the Lingyu sword, and went back to the mansion in Shan County City first. After arriving in Shan County City, Qin He lived a retired life. The public security of the county city is much better than that of Linjiang City. It is well ordered, and not so chaotic. He has nothing to do every day. In addition to getting up early to practice boxing, he goes to the riverside to chat and play chess with a group of old men. Xiaohun is even more idle and has nothing to do every day. Master, there is an embroidery shop at the corner of the street. I met a sister there and she wants to teach me embroidery. Do you think I can go and learn it? Xiaohun saw Qin Yang coming back and asked with courage. Embroidery? Then go ahead. You'll be bored in the mansion anyway. It's good to learn a craft. Qin Yang smiled. Thank you, master. Although Xiaohun guessed that Qin Yang would agree, she still smiled happily after hearing his reply. Okay, hurry up and get me something to eat. I haven't tasted your cooking for a long time. Qin Yang smiled. Chapter 65 Underfoot. Xiaohun happily went to the kitchen to cook. Qin Yang returned to his room. Now I have passed Han Qianyu's level. Currently, the only people in the patrol department who know the truth about the disappearance of Yang fishermen are Song Lingzi. Besides me, this guy is just watching the fun and won't tell anyone about it. Wang Fu probably won't be stupid enough to tell others about his practice of evil weapons to harm the people. Currently, only 3 people know about this. Qin Yang was thinking in his heart. He changed his words today and concealed the truth about the disappearance of Yang fishermen because of a conversation with Song Lingzi last night. Song Lingzi was right. Even if he reported this, Wang Fu would only be warned at most. With his family background and the fact that he would join the Zuanling department in a few days, Han Qianyu would not do anything to him. In this case, he simply concealed it. Anyway, he completed the mission and would have the same contribution points. Qin Yang's thoughts were simpler. Since the organization could not solve it, he, Qin Yang, would solve it in his own way. He and Wang Fu had met before. Once the other party entered the Sky Patrol department, he would find him sooner or later and make trouble for him everywhere. In this case, it is better to strike first. Kill Wang Fu first, so that he will not be a hindrance in the Sky Patrol department. But he does not have much time. According to Song Lingzi, Wang Fu will go to the Sky Patrol department in the next few days. If he wants to take action, he must do it within these few days. There are many masters in the palace. It is very difficult to sneak in and kill Wang Fu quietly. Qin Yang frowned slightly. Wang Fu is not an ordinary person. As a spiritual master, his methods are weird. It is almost impossible to kill Emo with one blow and then leave quietly. Then, there is only one place for ambush. Qin Yang's eyes flashed with strong murderous intent. He just wanted to practice well and didn't want any trouble. If trouble occurred, he could only solve it by any means. What's more, Wang Fu is a beast who sacrificed the lives of the people to practice evil weapons. As a killer of evil, Qin Yang has no choice but to kill him. 2 days later, the drizzle continued and the whole Shan city was shrouded in haze. A carriage slowly left the palace. The wheels kept rolling on the bluestone slabs and splashing water. After a while, the bluestone street turned into a thick Lois official road. The carriage drove out of Shan County and headed towards the direction of the Zunshan division. Bang! Just as the carriage passed through a dense forest official road, the wheels suddenly sank into a mud pit. The horse neighed and stopped directly. What's the matter? An indifferent voice came from the carriage. "Sir, the wheel is stuck in the mud pit. Why don't you get off first? I'll get the wheel out first." The guard who acted as a groom whispered cautiously. Wang Fu's temper is well known in the palace. He is irritable and unpredictable. If he is not satisfied, he will beat and scold him at the least, and even beat and kill him at the worst. What a waste. Wang Fu walked out of the carriage with a gloomy face. Today is the day for him to report to the Zunshan division, but something went wrong at this time. In addition, he was furious because of the loss he suffered a few days ago. Seeing Wang Fu's face, the guard secretly said in his heart, "Master, give me some more." With a puff, a dagger was inserted into the guard's heart. "I hate trash the most." Wang Fu's face was ferocious. The guard's eyes widened, and his body fell directly from the carriage. Wang Fu didn't even look at him, put away the dagger, and was about to get off the carriage to lift the wheel. Whoosh, a light and shadow suddenly rushed over quickly. The speed was too fast. Wang Fu's eyes only flashed a trace of residual image, and his mind didn't even react to what it was. A strong and violent force came from his chest. Bang, the ribs were broken, and directly inserted into the internal organs, making Wang Fu spit blood. I was tricked. Wang Fu had a thought in his mind. He quickly circulated the spiritual power in his body to form a weak light shield. The next second, another palm hit hard. This palm was so powerful that it was like a violent thunder, instantly shattering the light shield. Bang, bang, bang. Wang Fu kept retreating. His body was hit crazily by the figure. Waves of violent palm power poured into his body, blasting out terrible blood holes. Wang Fu looked at the masked figure, his consciousness blurred. Bang, the figure hit him fiercely between his eyebrows. For a moment, Wang Fu's eyes were bloodshot, his brain was beaten out, and after falling to the ground, his limbs twitched wildly. The figure picked up a big stone next to him and smashed his head crazily, then quickly put his body and the body of the guard into the carriage and drove away by himself. Came to a valley in the wilderness. Qin Yang burned the bodies of the two people in the carriage and only left the valley after confirming that they were burned to ashes. Qin Yang was very cautious and did not enter the city immediately, but went to an abandoned temple. In the past 2 days, he had already explored the places near Shan City. After entering the ruined temple, he took out a package from the beam, quickly changed his clothes, and burned the clothes he had taken off. No one can trace me back to me this way. Qin Yang thought back to the assassination, and after confirming that there was nothing missing, he returned to Shan County. Patrol Department, Zuanling Department. A dimly lit hall. Rows of red candles were burning, but the burning flames were strangely white. An old man with a Taoist bun and an apricot yellow robe sat cross-legged on a futon. He had a thin face and many wrinkles on his face. "Old man, what do you want me to do?" A white silk thread strangely slid down from the beam of the hall. There was a person hanging on the white silk thread. Naturally, it was Song Lingzi. According to the agreement, Wang Fu should come to the patrol department to report today. No one has been seen until now. Go and check what's going on, the old man said lightly. Oh. Song Lingzi nodded. His figure flashed and disappeared in the hall again. About half an hour later, the valley where Qin Yang destroyed the corpse. A pale young man appeared here. Qin Yang is a good guy. His technique is clean and neat, leaving no traces. I originally wanted to deal with the traces for him, so that he could give me special training. Damn it, Song Lingzi was a little depressed. At this moment, several figures flashed into the valley. They saw the burn marks on the ground, looked at Song Lingzi again, and frowned. "I'm Wang Se. May I know who you are?" A middle-aged man clasped his fists and said, "I'm from the patrol department." Song Lingzi smiled. "So you are the master of the patrol department." Our son Wang Fu went to the patrol department to report today, but he didn't come back for a long time, so the master sent us out to look for him. We accidentally found some traces of fighting ahead, so we chased him all the way. I wonder if the master knows where my son is now? Wang Se said, neither servile nor arrogant. "Isn't your son trampled under your feet?" Song Lingzi said with a strange look on his face. Chapter 66 Investigation. Wang Fu died. He died on the way to report to the Zuanling department of the patrol. Neither the Wang family nor the Zuanling department could accept this. The Wang family sent a large number of people to investigate, but the murderer was too professional and left no trace. Song Lingzi, who was sent by the Zuanling department, was a pure insider. He looked very hardworking, but in fact he was just slacking off. In a magnificent mansion in Shan County. Bang! A cup of expensive tea was thrown to the ground and shattered into countless porcelain pieces. Waste. So many days have passed and you haven't found out any news at all? The head of the Wang family, Wang Fu's father, Wang Heizhao, looked at the group of people in front of him and roared hysterically. The Wang family was so scared that they dared not speak and trembled. The head of the family, the murderer, burned all the traces. At present, we can only investigate from who the young master offended. Wang Se, who was in charge of the investigation, could only bite the bullet and said, "So what did you find out?" Wang Heizhao asked loudly. "Young master is used to being alone. I have investigated for a few days, but I really found nothing." Wang Se shook his head. "Huh, what a bunch of rubbish. And that Sky Patrol too. All of them are rubbish. I have to investigate it myself. All of you get out of here." Wang Heizhao fiercely overturned a table. When Wang Se and others heard this, they breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly left the hall. Wang Heizhao sat alone in the hall, still angry. A charming woman rushed in with tears in her eyes. "Heizhao, Fu died so tragically. You must avenge him." The woman cried. "Nonsense. I also want to avenge Fu. But now I can't find anyone. What can I do?" Wang Heizhao was upset. Why not invite Fu's master over? Maybe he has a way. The woman whispered. Wang Heizhao's eyes lit up. "That's a way. How could I forget this person? But Fu's master's whereabouts are uncertain. I don't know where to find him." Wang Heizhao frowned again. Then spread the news. "As long as Master Fu hears it, he will come here naturally." The woman said anxiously. "Well, this is the only way." Wang Heizhao sighed helplessly. 5 days later, Qin Yang returned to the Sky Patrol Division again. Tomorrow is the day when the Sky Patrol Division is officially established. As a member of the Evil Slaying Division, he naturally has to come back to participate. Just as he stepped into his own courtyard, a dagger suddenly pointed at his back. "Don't move. I'm a cold-blooded killer." A cold and indifferent voice came. "Just you?" Qin Yang smiled slightly, and the gas shield seed in his heart spread instantly. When the Hunyuan gas shield was formed, the impact force bounced a figure fiercely away. Whoosh! At the same time, Qin Yang flashed and slapped the figure with a palm. Bang! The figure turned into a piece of wood and exploded fiercely. "Qin Yang, do you have to be so cruel?" Song Lingzi appeared in the yard. "Don't you want to be a killer? Not professional at all." Qin Yang smiled. "Of course I'm not as professional as you." Song Lingzi chuckled. Qin Yang also walked into the courtyard. "I heard that Wang Fu died. How is the investigation going?" Qin Yang was not shy at all. He knew that Song Lingzi had probably guessed it a long time ago. But he also believed that the other party would conceal the past for him. "What else can I do? That person's method is more professional than yours. He didn't leave any traces. It's probably another unsolved case." Song Lingzi sighed. "That's a pity." Qin Yang nodded. "It's really a pity." Song Lingzi chuckled. "Such a pity, it's worth a drink. Let's go to the dining hall, I'll treat you." Qin Yang laughed. After drinking with Song Lingzi, Qin Yang returned to his courtyard to practice. These days he was busy dealing with tasks and designing such an assassination of Wang Fu, and he didn't practice properly. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 5th level, 1354/1500, Mixed Origin Key Cover, 7th level, 796/1500, Thunder Palm, minor success. 356 thousandths, Army Breaking Sword Technique, perfection, breaking the edge. First, practice Mixed Origin Key Cover and Turtle Snake Art to perfection. But during this period, I may spend some time to complete the task of killing evil, so that I can exchange for the inner breath technique later. Qin Yang looked at the attribute panel and thought about the arrangements for the future. After the key is gathered, it is time to practice the inner breath realm. The inner breath realm is also divided into 3 realms. They are True Key, Gang Key and True Gang. Opening the meridians is the most critical step in the inner breath realm. When the inner key in the warrior's body is gathered to the limit, it is necessary to open up the meridians throughout the body. In this process, the grade of the technique is very important. because the human body has 12 meridians and 8 extraordinary meridians. Ordinary inner breath techniques can only open up the 12 meridians to achieve the effect of qi flowing through the whole body. But the first class internal breathing technique can open up even the 8 extraordinary meridians of the human body and obtain more terrifying power. Qin Yang's goal in the Sky Patrol Division is naturally the first class internal breathing technique. After the founding ceremony is over tomorrow, I will go and see how much this first class internal breathing technique costs. After Qin Yang made up his mind, he practiced the Hunyo and Yiki cover in the yard. The next day, the Sky Patrol Division Square. Compared with the previous desertedness, today it is still quite popular, with about a few hundred people gathered, and they are clearly divided into 5 teams. The Ministry of Internal Affairs has the most people, with more than 200 people. Among them, the Ministry of Patrol and the Ministry of War have the most people, with about more than 100 people each. The Ministry of Killing Evil is not bad, with more than 50 people. Qin Yang stood in the front position. The 7 or 8 people behind him are the key gathering warriors selected this time, and now they are officially killing evil people. After that, it is the blood-moving warriors. He heard Zhang Zhao mention that these blood-moving warriors will set up a training camp and train them into qualified evil killers in a few months. Of course, this process will eliminate many people, and the Zuanling department seems out of place. There are only 5 people, except for the old man in front, who is a little more normal. The ones behind look very abnormal. Not to mention Song Lingzi, who always has a white silk hanging around his neck and sticks out his tongue, playing the role of a hanged ghost. Qin Yang once asked him why he dressed like this. Song Lingzi said frankly that he thought this outfit was very handsome. Behind him was a scholar, holding a book in his hand, reciting with his head shaking. Then there was a huge fat man, holding a large plate of ore in his hand, constantly stuffing it into his mouth. The last one looked a little more normal, wearing a slim robe, but the gender could not be seen clearly. Qin Yang looked for a long time, and didn't know whether this person was a man or a woman. There were several figures on the wooden platform built in the square. Lu Shengaiyu, a strong old man Qin Yang had seen before. Next to him was a man dressed as a scholar, holding a paper fan, and looked elegant. After Zhang Zhao introduced him, he realized that this man was another deputy chief of the Zunshan division, Li Qiahei. Chapter 67 Information. The 2 deputy chiefs were standing on the wooden platform and talking happily, as if there was no barrier between them. In addition to the 2 of them, there was an old man with 3 long beards and a strange appearance. The old man wore an exquisite official robe and a black gauze on his head, and he had an extraordinary demeanor. Brother Zhang, who is this man? Qin Yang asked curiously. He guessed that this man should be a senior official in Shan County, but he didn't know who he was. He doesn't even know him? He is the great official of our Shan County, Gongsun Liang. Zhang Zhao smiled, but Qin Yang felt that his tone was somewhat yin and yang. He is the county governor. Qin Yang was slightly curious. Now the chaos is gradually emerging, but Shan County can still maintain peace. As the county governor, Gongsun Liang is by no means a simple person. This guy must be very depressed. Originally, Shan County was the only one in power, and now we have our Zunshan division. I guess there will be good shows to watch in the future. Zhang Zhao grinned. Qin Yang was thinking. It seems that the establishment of the Xiangsan division also means to control the local government. After all, the Xiangsan division does not obey the county magistrate's office and operates completely independently. It not only recruits a large number of masters under its command, but also has intelligence agencies such as the Zunming department. It seems that the Xiangsan division is also very deep. Qin Yang thought to himself. In addition to dealing with evil cults, the Xiangsan division also has to control the local government. It is not easy to offend so many forces at once. The 3 of them talked and laughed on the stage. As for what their real thoughts were, I'm afraid no one knows. The next step is the standard procedure. After Lu Shengaiyu, Li Qiahei, and Gongsun Liang each expressed some thoughts, they announced that the Xiangsan division was officially established. Bang bang bang, firecrackers kept burning and making crisp sounds. In the sky, fireworks kept blooming. It's a pity that it was daytime and not so gorgeous. After the show ended, the people in the square dispersed. Qin Yang came to a stone building of the Xiangsan division. This stone building is called Linxin Building, and the name sounds very elegant. But in fact, this is one of the most guarded places in the patrol department. As soon as Qin Yang approached, he could feel a strong aura locked on him. It seems that the Ministry of Internal Affairs is also full of hidden talents. None of the several departments of the patrol department is easy to deal with. Qin Yang looked calm. The Linxin Pavilion is under the charge of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and the Daily Guard is naturally the responsibility of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Walking into the stone building, Qin Yang saw rows of cabinets with various elixirs on them. There are healing pills, auxiliary cultivation pills, and even poison pills. Qin Yang took a look and chose to give up helplessly. These pills are too expensive. It's easy to cost dozens of contribution points per bottle. He doesn't have much contribution points now. The contribution points for the missing fisherman in Bijiang have been issued, plus the original 100 contribution points. It is 200 contribution points. What's more, for him, he only needs to constantly replenish the consumption of Qi and blood, and the pills that increase the speed of cultivation are useless. He has a proficiency panel, and he can get the experience by madly liver, not to mention wasting contribution points. Going up to the second floor is where the martial arts secrets are stored. Dark red bookcases are densely packed but orderly, forming areas. Fists, swords, hard skills, light skills, and internal skills are divided into areas. Qin Yang went to the area of internal breath skills. 3 Flames True Explanation. He picked up a martial arts secret book at random. Most of these martial arts secret books are blank, with only the general outline. If you want to see all the contents, you can only get the rubbings after exchanging them with contribution points. This is a second-rate internal breath method. In addition to opening up the 12 main meridians, it can also open up the Yangqiao and Yangwei meridians of the 8 extraordinary meridians. After these 2 extraordinary meridians are opened, it can allow the practitioner to accumulate yang energy in the body, making the internal breath become hot. Qin Yang took a look and found that this 3 Flames True Explanation actually required 500 contribution points. As for the first-rate internal breath methods, there are very few, about a dozen, and the required contribution points are as high as 1000. If Qin Yang wants to choose, he must choose the most difficult internal breath method to practice. With the proficiency panel, as long as he starts practicing, the so-called difficult practice will never happen to him. And this internal breath technique is better to match the properties of his Qi gathering technique. After all, his turtle snake Qi belongs to the cold and deep internal Qi, and if he practices the previous 3 Flames True solution, there will naturally be a conflict. Soon, his eyes fell on a martial arts secret book, Beaming Black Water True Skill. After Qin Yang took a few glances, his expression was very surprised. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that this Beaming Black Water True Skill was an advanced version of the turtle snake secret. Legend has it that in the extreme north of the world, there is a deep black sea called Beaming. There are countless demons and evil spirits there, wanting to bring disaster to the world. At this time, a divine beast with a dragon head, a snake tail and a turtle body was born in the world, suppressing Beaming. This Beaming Black Water True Skill is a technique created by this divine beast. Even the grade is not written as first class, but as unknown. There are also some information marked on it. Forbidden skills. Please choose carefully. In the past, most of the warriors who practiced this skill suddenly died for unknown reasons. A few survivors were mentally confused and plagued by hysteria, and could not recover for life. After Qin Yang finished reading the annotations of this martial arts secret book, he was slightly stunned. Boy, isn't it good to be alive? Why did you choose this skill? A hunchbacked old man suddenly appeared. Qin Yang was shocked. He didn't notice it at all. This means that, if the other party wants to sneak attack him, it will be easy. This hunchbacked old man is definitely a master. Old man, it seems that no one has successfully practiced this skill. Why is it still here? Qin Yang calmed down and asked seriously. This old man should be the master guarding the Linxin Pavilion. The hunchbacked old man explained. Forbidden skills are usually passed down from ancient times. Most people know that they cannot practice them, but they are just used for reference. But I see that you are so engrossed in reading, I guess you don't know the forbidden skills, so I reminded you. Qin Yang suddenly realized. No wonder this forbidden technique and the first class in a breath technique are both worth 1000 contribution points. It turns out that no one would use it for practice, but just for reference. Thank you for your reminder, old man. Qin Yang clasped his fists and said, I'll just remind you once. Think it through yourself. The hunchbacked old man shook his head and walked away with his hands behind his back. Qin Yang put down the beaming black water true skill. He didn't care about any forbidden techniques. Others couldn't do it, but he definitely could. Not for any reason. Just because he had a proficiency panel and others didn't. But now there is still a lot of contribution points missing, and it takes more time to accumulate. The turtle snake art also needs more time to practice to perfection. He came here this time just to confirm his goal, and how many contribution points he needed. After leaving Linkson Tower, Qin Yang returned to his courtyard to practice. Half a month passed uneventfully. Wang Fu's death did not affect him at all. No one would suspect him. Except for Song Lingzi, outsiders thought that he and Wang Fu had no intersection. Chapter 68 Return Home. The sun sets. The sky gradually turns dark purple. The number of people on the street gradually decreases and becomes deserted. It is still the transition period between winter and spring, and the weather has not yet warmed up. As night falls, the temperature drops rapidly. Many shops close one after another and pack up and go home. Wu Dao is an ordinary citizen. He runs a small stall on the street and makes a living by selling sesame cakes. The business is pretty good today, and Wu Dao's sesame cakes are sold out early. In 2 months, I can save enough money and find a wife. Wu Dao was packing up his cart while thinking about his better life in the future. He and Wang Pio from the next street have agreed. As long as he saves 10 taels of silver, she will introduce him to Pan Xiaomui from next door. That girl is really beautiful. Wu Dao works so hard every day just to save enough money to marry Pan Xiaomui. For this, he specially prepared a gift. He packed up the cart quickly and prepared to put away the stool on the side. These stools are prepared for some old customers. They usually eat a sesame cake and get together to brag and chat. But when Wu Dao turned around, he suddenly saw a man sitting on the stool, staring at him. The man had an ordinary appearance, wearing a blue gown, about 40 years old, with very obvious wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. When did this man sit behind me? Wu Dao was shocked. He felt that the guy's eyes were weird, dumb and stiff. Sir, the sesame cakes are sold out today. Why don't you come back tomorrow? Wu Dao smiled. The man seemed not to hear Wu Dao's voice and still stared at him. This made Wu Dao a little scared. Sir, the sesame cakes are really sold out. Wu Dao explained helplessly. I can't go home. The man finally spoke. His voice seemed dry and hoarse, as if he hadn't drunk water for a long time. Your home? How do I know where your home is? Get out of here. I have to go home. Wu Dao thought he might have run into a fool, so he waved his hand and drove him away. You can't be too polite to these fools. I can't go home. The middle-aged man looked dull and shook his head gently. Then don't sit on my stool. Otherwise I'll get angry. Wu Dao raised his voice a little, but the middle-aged man ignored him and just kept repeating, I can't go home. Wu Dao saw him like this and called him a few more times. But the other party seemed to be possessed and kept repeating those words. The dull eyes were still staring at Wu Dao. There are too many fools these days. Okay, I don't want this stool for you. You can sit slowly. Wu Dao was too lazy to bother, so he put away the other stools and put them on the cart. He ignored the middle-aged man and pushed the cart away. But after pushing it for 5 or 6 meters, when Wu Dao looked back, it was dark and the stool was placed alone under the tree. The middle-aged man was nowhere to be seen. Strange. How come this man walks without making any sound? Wu Dao muttered and trotted back to put away his stool. It turned out that the stool had a faint black mark. This guy is so dirty. Wu Dao shook his head helplessly and he didn't take it to heart, pushing the cart home. Just a little time was wasted and the sky was completely dark and no one was seen. Wu Dao's figure was alone pushing the cart. Turning into an alley, he returned to his house. He put the cart away. After a hard day's work, his stomach was already flat and he hurried to the kitchen to cook some noodles. Just as he came out with the hot noodles and entered the house, his expression suddenly became terrified and his hand shook. The bowl in his hand fell directly to the ground. Clang, the noodle soup spilled all over the floor. In the room, the strange middle-aged man who had just appeared when the store was closed sat on his bed, staring at him. "How did you get in?" Wu Da said in horror. He remembered that he had locked the door when he came in. But how did this middle-aged man get in? Climb over the wall! Exclamation mark. Could this guy be one of those robbers? I can't go home. The middle-aged man looked at Wu Da, still saying the same thing. This is my home, not yours. Get out of here. Wu Da came to his senses, walked into the room, and yelled at the middle-aged man. Bang! Suddenly, the door behind him slammed shut. Wu Da's heart skipped a beat again. There was no strong wind, so how could the door close naturally? Exclamation mark. For a moment, Wu Da was in a state of confusion. The middle-aged man was still sitting on the bed, staring at him. A chill surged in his heart. In addition to being dull, the other person's eyes also had some malice. Wu Da wanted to push the door and leave, but he found that the wooden door would not open, no matter how hard he pushed. What's wrong? Wu Da looked at the middle-aged man, his mind blank and his legs weak with fear. In Shan City, on this day, after Qin Yang finished practicing the turtle snake key, he habitually opened the panel. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 6th level, 1220/2000, Hunio Yiki cover, 8th level, 796 over 1800, Thunder Palm, minor success. 870 thousandths, Podgen Sword Technique, perfect, breaking the edge. In the past half month, he has been practicing Turtle Snake Key and Hunio Yiki cover. As the Turtle Snake Key was practiced to the 6th level, his skin, bones, blood, and flesh gradually became stronger under the tempering of the Turtle Snake Key. His aura became deeper and more obscure. As long as he wanted, he could even hide his aura completely. It was as if the turtle snake was dormant in the deep sea, without any key leakage. The Hunioan key shield was getting closer to perfection. The key shield seeds had already covered the heart. Once activated, they would spread rapidly and form an invulnerable key shield. The practice of the Thunder Palm was a little slower. After all, Qin Yang did not put too much energy into it. It is indeed difficult to cross from the key gathering stage to the inner breathing stage. I estimate that it will take another 4 to 5 months to complete the practice of the turtle snake key. I have to go out on missions during this period, so the time will probably be delayed by 1 or 2 months. Qin Yang estimated in his mind. Sirkin, Director Han is looking for you. A guard reported outside the courtyard. Okay. Qin Yang responded. Finally the mission has come. Just in time to earn some contribution points. Qin Yang walked out of the courtyard and went all the way to the Xuxi Hall. Han Kaianai was still as busy as ever. Seeing Qin Yang come in, he pointed to the case file on the table. Well, he didn't even say anything. Qin Yang complained in his heart, shrugged helplessly, and picked up the case file to check. Wenan Street violent death case. About 10 days ago, a man named Wu Da was found dead in his house near Wenan Street. His death was horrific and his belongings were stolen. The government initially thought it was a case of burglary and murder. But in the following days, the same situation occurred in several nearby streets. People kept dying. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Order. People have died in several streets. Is the range of this evil spirit so large? Qin Yang frowned. He had fought with evil spirits several times. Evil spirits usually have a fixed range of activities. But this is the first time he has seen an evil spirit whose range of activities has expanded to several streets. Not necessarily. Some evil spirits have a range of activities. Not fixed. Han Kaianai finally spoke. She put down the brush in her hand and explained to Qin Yang seriously. Evil spirits exist in various ways. So far, we have discovered that the most common two are, one is to cause trouble in a fixed range. Everyone who enters the fixed range of the evil spirit may be attacked. The other is more harmful. This evil spirit is attached to objects. As long as you touch these objects, or some stranger things, you will attract the evil spirit. Qin Yang understood. It seems that this mission is the second case. Well, this mission may be more complicated. 150 contribution points. Do you want to do it? Han Kaiana, who didn't say any nonsense. Qin Yang put away the case file. Wait for my good news. With the experience of the last time, Qin Yang was much more skilled. He carried the Lingaiyu sword on his back and used the Phi Iron Step all the way and quickly came to the government office in Shan County. The person who was responsible for assisting him this time was still an old acquaintance, Meng Feng. Constable Meng, we are quite predestined, Qin Yang said with a smile. Meng Feng smiled bitterly. No one in the government office was willing to assist the patrol department. First, there was no profit. Usually, you could make some money by doing some tasks. But following the patrol department, you had to deal with evil spirits and ghosts. Only the king of hell could ask for money from these evil spirits. If you can't get the money, just forget it. The key is that this job is extremely dangerous. Evil spirits are cruel and terrible, and their killing methods are even more treacherous. The constables would rather catch the big thieves than come into contact with evil spirits. Meng Feng had little experience in the government office and a simple identity background, so he was naturally sent out. Qin Yang understood the helplessness in Meng Feng's eyes. He smiled and said, with me here, Constable Meng can rest assured. Meng Feng nodded. Then please take care of me, Lord Qin. Seeing that it was Qin Yang, Meng Feng was actually somewhat relieved. This evil killer was indeed very capable, and following him was indeed not that dangerous. Is Wu Da's body still there? Qin Yang asked. It's still there. The weather is cold now, and the body hasn't decayed too much. It's in the burial room. Meng Feng nodded. He led Qin Yang in front, and came to the most remote courtyard of the government office. It might be psychological reasons, or something else. After Qin Yang walked in here, he always felt a little cold. There were coffins stacked in the courtyard, and yellow and white paper talismans on the ground. After walking in, it was the burial room. A thin old man in linen was sitting inside, lying on a chair, drinking tea. He was content. If you ignore those cold and pale bodies. Old song, is Wu Da's body still there a few days ago? Meng Feng asked. The old man stood up, and saw that it was Meng Feng. He smiled and said, it's Constable Meng. The body is of course here. Although the old man looked frail, he was quite strong. He soon carried a body out. Qin Yang went forward to take a look. Wu Da's body was somewhat decayed. He died in a very horrible way. His flesh and blood were torn to pieces by some sharp weapon, which might be claw-like. Then he looked at several other bodies. The death was similar. After Qin Yang took a few glances, he and Meng Feng left the funeral room. Constable Meng, can you show me the identity information of these people? Qin Yang thought of what Han Kaianayu had said. These people must have come into contact with the same thing, which led to their death. What he needed to do was to find this thing. Okay. Meng Feng first took Qin Yang to a reception room, and he went to prepare the case files. In these 10 days, a total of 6 people died. In order of death, they were Wu Da, Wang Yaokei, Liu San, Chen Jian, Lu Wenshan, and finally Wu Fang. Wu Da sells sesame cakes. Wang Yaokei is an unemployed vagrant who specializes in stealing. Liu San is a thug in a gambling house in the city. Chen Jian is Liu San's boss. Lu Wenshan is special. He is the owner of a pawn shop. The last Wu Fang is an old bachelor who runs a steamed bun shop. The identities of these 6 people are different and very different. Except for Liu San and Chen Jian, the others have no connection at all. So what did they encounter? Acting Constable Meng, the Wu family's house was robbed. Liu San and Chen Jian lost all their belongings. Wu Fang's money was also missing. But why didn't Wang Yaokei and Lu Wenshan lose their belongings? After reading through the case files, Qin Yang found a question. Why is this matter getting more and more weird? Wang Yaokei's house is empty and has nothing. Lu Wenshan died in his shop. The money and belongings were indeed not lost. We were also very confused at the time. Meng Feng said in a deep voice. That's strange. What's the use of this evil spirit for these vulgar things like gold and silver? It's better to go to the incense and candle shop and steal some paper money. Qin Yang smiled. That, we can't say. Maybe we need to investigate to find out the reason. Meng Feng shook his head. Then let's go. According to the order of death, start with Wu Fang who died last. Qin Yang stood up. This time Meng Feng didn't bring his brothers. It was just him and Qin Yang. But after searching Wu Fang's house, Qin Yang didn't find any new clues. The next thing was Lu Wenshan's pawn shop. The pawn shop was sealed by the government. But when Qin Yang walked in, he found that the entire pawn shop was empty. Didn't Captain Meng say that there was no theft in the pawn shop? Qin Yang asked curiously. Meng Feng touched his nose awkwardly. It's true that there was no theft. The things in the pawn shop were sent to the government as evidence for safekeeping. Qin Yang's eyes became even stranger. Master Qin, you have to believe in my character. I didn't take any of these things. Meng Feng explained loudly. HMM. Qin Yang sorted out his thoughts and felt that the things in the pawn shop should not be what he was looking for. Otherwise, the matter should have ended here with Lu Wenshan, and Wu Wen would not have died. Wu Wen's death means that this thing is still circulating, but he did not find anything strange in his room. Next is Liu Sun and Chen Jian. The two died together, and the place where they died was Chen Jian's house. According to the people in the gambling house, Chen Jian likes men. Liu Sun is his lover. Meng Feng's face was strange. Qin Yang couldn't help scratching his head. What kind of messed up relationship is this? After searching in Chen Jian's house, there was no gain. Chapter 70 Clues. After finding no clues at Chen Jian's house, Qin Yang and Meng Feng went to Wang Yaokei's house. Just as Meng Feng said, Wang Yaokei's house was bare, with nothing but some earthenware pots and tattered clothes. According to Wang Yaokei's neighbors, in addition to being a thief, this guy's also a gambler. Whenever he has some spare money, he goes to the gambling house. Meng Feng said softly. He likes to gamble. Qin Yang was thoughtful. Could it be that Wang Yaokei's contact with Liu Sun and Chen Jian was because he went to the gambling house to gamble? Constable Meng, what is the name of the gambling house that Chen Jian saw? Qin Yang asked softly. Yang King Gambling House. Meng Feng answered directly. Yang King Gambling House. Please check if Wang Yaokei has been to Yang King Gambling House to gamble these days. Qin Yang's eyes lit up. Okay, I'll take you to Wu's house first. It's not far from here. Meng Feng nodded. Trouble. Qin Yang looked around and found no clues, so he followed Meng Feng to Wu Da's house. Meng Feng went to investigate the Yang King Gambling House, leaving Qin Yang alone to investigate at Wu Da's house. Soon, Qin Yang found a dark red bloodstain. This bloodstain was located in front of the wooden door and penetrated into the stone bricks on the ground. Qin Yang looked at the wooden door for a few times and found many shallow and messy claw marks. A picture quickly appeared in his mind. Wu Da entered the house and might have seen something terrible and wanted to turn around and run. But his legs were caught by the terrible thing. Wu Da struggled desperately, waving his hands randomly, leaving marks on the wooden door. But later, Wu Da's struggle became more and more chaotic until his life was completely over. Qin Yang was distracted and pulled out of the imaginary picture. He frowned, stood at the door, and looked at the room. If Wu Da really came in from the door, then the terrible thing he saw should be near the bed. Qin Yang walked over to check. Soon, he found that Wu Da's mattress had a faint black stain. Qin Yang sniffed it. A familiar smell. A cold and rotten smell. There should have been an evil spirit sitting here, waiting for Wu Da to come in. But why did it target Wu Da? Qin Yang frowned slightly. Then, he found no other clues in the room. Just as he walked out of the hut, he unexpectedly saw the cart that Wu Da used to make a living. Qin Yang went to look for it in the spirit of not letting go of any clues. As a result, he really found another clue. A small bench tied to the cart had a faint black mark. It seems that Wu Da was entangled by the evil spirit outside. Qin Yang thought thoughtfully. As for why Wu Da was entangled by the evil spirit, the scope is large. Qin Yang could only ask some of Wu Da's neighbors and find the place where he used to set up a stall. This place has a lot of traffic. If Wu Da didn't set up the stall one day, it would be occupied by someone the next day. Now it has become a place to sell fruits. Qin Yang went up to buy some oranges and asked around. After confirming that the stall owner had set up a stall here for a few days and nothing happened, he left. When Meng Feng came back, he saw Qin Yang squatting at the door of Wu Da's house, peeling oranges. How is it? Is there any situation? Qin Yang asked. Well, Lord Qin, you guessed right. The place where Wang Yaokei went was a Yang King gambling house. Meng Feng whispered. Gurgle. Qin Yang swallowed the peeled orange into his stomach and wiped the juice from the corner of his mouth. Let's go, young master. Qin Yang found that his identity was wrong. He shouldn't use the word young master. Let's go, let's go. In the end, he could only wave his hand and let Meng Feng lead the way. The gambling house is open day and night, 12 hours a day. In Shan County, gambling houses naturally dare not open in the open, but can only be opened in some remote alleys. They also need to build good relationships and have some backers behind them to open. Meng Feng took Qin Yang around in the narrow and complex streets and alleys, and finally came to the entrance of an alley. Before entering, Qin Yang saw 5 or 6 idle men sitting here. These idle guys all look a bit muscular, fierce, with bulging waists, probably with weapons. They are the most typical gangsters. Constable Meng, why are you here today? Our place is not under your jurisdiction, right? A tall and thin man with triangular eyes stood up, looking unfriendly. As a constable of Shan County, can't I control you here? Meng Feng narrowed his eyes. As soon as he said this, he got angry. Several idle guys also stood up, staring at Meng Feng and Qin Yang fiercely. Those who can open a gambling house are naturally not good people. If it is a constable of the government office, they may still be taboo. But a constable of the government office, or a constable with no identity background, they can still eat and drink. Meng Feng, go ask your constable Yan of the government office. Then you will know whether this is the place you are in charge of. The triangular eyes sneered. I'm not here to collect money today. I'm here to investigate the case. Meng Feng said in a deep voice. I don't care what you're doing here. How can we do business if you go in wearing this? Triangle Eye's voice gradually became irritable. Then can we not do it? Qin Yang asked with a smile. Who are you? Triangle Eyes glanced at Qin Yang and frowned slightly. Those who watch the gambling house are naturally very familiar with the people in the government office. But Qin Yang is very unfamiliar, and he is not wearing the uniform of a constable, just a simple martial arts uniform. Song Lingzi. Qin Yang smiled. I've been in Shan City for so many years, and I haven't heard of this name. Just because of you want to make my Yangqing gambling house close down. What a joke. Triangle Eye sneered. Really? Qin Yang grinned, stretched out his big hand, grabbed Triangle Eye's hair, and smashed it against the wall. Bang, the bricks of the wall were all broken apart. Triangle Eye's entire head was smashed into pieces, and his body twitched strangely. You dare to do it? Several younger brothers looked at Triangle Eye's body that was constantly twitching strangely and retreated in fear. If you keep talking nonsense to me, I'll smash your heads too, Qin Yang said with a smile. What a big mouth. A figure suddenly rushed out of the alley. A tearing sound came from the air. A slender and skinny palm grabbed quickly. The opening and closing of this palm was as sharp and vigorous as an eagle's claw, and it grabbed Qin Yang's chest fiercely. Eagle Claw Kung Fu. This is a horizontal training external kung fu with very strong attack power. After practicing to perfection, not to mention the human body, even fine iron can be crushed with one claw. This person's Eagle Claw Kung Fu has obviously been practiced to perfection. It seems that Qin Yang was hit in the chest by the opponent before he could react. The man who made the move sneered and was about to tear off a large piece of flesh and blood to teach Qin Yang a lesson. But when his claws landed on Qin Yang's chest, bang! Chapter 71. Gambling House. A scream rang out in the alley. The man who used the eagle claw to sneak attack Qin Yang felt that his finger bones were completely cracked. Just now, when his eagle claw landed on Qin Yang's chest, he only felt that he hit a layer of tough air shield. Then a rebound force came, shattering his hand bones. The broken bones even pierced his skin. No wonder he screamed so miserably. Can't you talk it over nicely? Why do you have to use your hands? I hate violence the most. Qin Yang grinned at the eagle claw master. The next second, there was another loud bang. The eagle claw master's head was grabbed by Qin Yang again and slammed against the wall. It can be seen that the eagle claw master's head is much harder than Triangle Eyes. It may also be because Qin Yang exerted too much force. The eagle claw master's head directly smashed through the wall. Tortoise-like cracks quickly spread on the wall. Several younger brothers were so scared that their legs and feet became weak and their scalps were numb. Why bother? You must force me, Song Lingzi, to take action. Qin Yang sighed. Meng Feng didn't know why Qin Yang pretended to be someone else. But when he saw this scene, he still smiled bitterly. The style of this patrol officer is so overbearing. Qin Yang clapped his hands and walked into the alley. After walking more than 10 meters, he walked into a mansion. This mansion had obviously been renovated, and 2 nearby houses were connected to form a gambling house. At this time, the gambling house was still in full swing. Those gamblers were excited, and their eyes were red. I don't know how long they haven't rested. There were men and women, old and young. But when they saw Meng Feng coming in, "Someone is coming from the government office. Run!" a gambler exclaimed. For a while, the whole gambling house was in chaos. Those gamblers took advantage of the situation and grabbed the silver on the table and ran outside. The scene became very chaotic for a while. The people in the gambling house couldn't control themselves at all. They wanted to catch some guys who took advantage of the situation, and the two sides soon wrestled. Bang, bang, bang. Tables and chairs were constantly knocked to the ground, and the scene became more chaotic. The Triangular Eyes and the Eagle Claw Kung Fu masters who were in charge of the place were killed by Qin Yang, and these minions could not control the situation. Soon, most of the gamblers ran away. Only a few unlucky ones were caught. The gambling house was in a mess. Qin Yang and Meng Feng just watched at the door. "Meng Feng, wait for the boss to come. Let me see how you explain it." A young man with a defiant face snorted coldly. "This Yangqing gambling house is one of the industries of the Bishan gang. In Shan Outer City, the Bishan gang is one of the more influential gangs with a large population, controlling industries such as gambling houses and brothels. For Meng Feng, a constable in the Yamen, this Bishan gang is indeed not to be messed with. How should I explain it? You'd better think about how to explain it to the person next to me." Meng Feng shook his head. The young man looked at Qin Yang with a puzzled look. Who is this person? But thinking that the worshipper who was in charge of the place couldn't do anything to the two men, the young man chose to stay put. After a while, a group of fierce men in grey linen gowns rushed in. "Meng Feng, what do you mean?" A man with a sinister face walked out. His name is Mei Baotian, and he is the leader of the Bishan gang. Yangqing Casino is his stall. "I told you. I came here to investigate today." Meng Feng snorted coldly. He is also a young man, full of youth and vigor. How could he be afraid of Mei Baotian? "Investigate? I think you are looking for trouble." Mei Baotian's eyes flashed with anger. How can he run this place in the future, after being messed up by Meng Feng and Qin Yang? "You saw the 2 corpses at the door," Qin Yang said. "I saw it. Why, you think you are so powerful, just because you killed a blood-moving warrior? I tell you, there are people beyond people, and there are heavens beyond heavens. You are the only one who gathers ki." Mei Baotian snorted coldly. A heavy aura rose from him. He knew that Qin Yang was the one who killed the Eagle Claw Kung Fu Master and the Triangular Eye. But he, Mei Baotian, had been able to survive in a place like Shan City where all kinds of people mixed together for so many years, so he was not someone to be trifled with. Gathering ki. Qin Yang turned his head. Swish. The next second, his figure rushed out, as if transformed into light and shadow. Mei Baotian only felt a terrifying gust of wind coming, and subconsciously raised his hands to block it. Bang. Qin Yang used the Ahat Bell striking fist and hit Mei Baotian's hands hard. Now he used the Ahat fist, which fully embodied the beauty of power. Every move was filled with extreme explosive power. It was really like the Ahat descended to the world, brave and mighty. Mei Baotian only felt a terrifying force blasting his arms open. "Spare my life." Mei Baotian roared in a hurry. A fist stopped less than a centimeter away from Mei Baotian's eyes. "I didn't expect you could still shout it out." Qin Yang was a little surprised. He really intended to punch him. "Sir, spare my life. I'll tell you whatever you want to know." Mei Baotian's legs were shaking with fear. Qin Yang's elbow just now was too terrifying. Even the internal energy in his danshan was agitated and almost dispersed by Qin Yang's elbow. You know, it's not so easy for a warrior to gather ki. Not everyone is as abnormal as Qin Yang, who can gather ki as long as he keeps practicing hard. Gathering ki requires taking a lot of nourishing herbs and then condensing the internal energy. This process is very slow compared to ordinary people. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people stuck in this ki gathering stage. Many people may not be able to enter the key gathering realm in their entire lives. If the internal energy in Maybe Ocean Stanchion really dispersed, it would be equivalent to practicing in vain in the past few years. Wouldn't it be better to cooperate like this earlier? Let's go and find a place to talk. Qin Yang smiled slightly. Maybe Ocean didn't dare to disobey. He asked his men to leave the gambling house first, and then took Qin Yang and Meng Feng into the tea room at the back. Maybe Ocean, do you know Wang Yaokei? Qin Yang asked seriously. I've never heard of Wang Yaokei. Maybe Ocean shook his head. He really didn't know this person. Qin Yang nodded gently. With Maybe Ocean's status, he would not come into contact with Wang Yaokei. This kid came to your place to gamble before. It only takes me a cup of tea. If you don't find out the information for me, don't blame me for blowing your head off. Qin Yang smiled. Maybe Ocean felt a chill in his heart and turned to rush to the tea house to find a group of younger brothers to inquire about this person. After a while, Maybe Ocean came over with a young man. It was the young man who provoked Meng Feng before. Do you know Wang Yaokei? Qin Yang said softly. Under Qin Yang's gaze, the young man seemed a little scared. Maybe Ocean slapped the young man directly. My lord is asking you a question. Hurry up and speak. King P covered his face and whispered, I know him. He is a gambler. He owed more than 10 taels of silver in gambling debts. But about 8 days ago, he suddenly owed more than 10 taels of silver in gambling debts. I remember he lost 5 or 6 taels of silver that day. Chapter 72 Progress. How did Wang Yaokei suddenly become rich? Meng Feng asked in surprise. More than 20 taels is not a small amount for ordinary people, let alone a guy like Wang Yaokei who has nothing at home. I was also puzzled at the time and asked him a few questions. This guy hesitated and didn't say anything. I guess he stole it from somewhere. The young gangster said cautiously. Did Chen Jian and Liu Sun have any contact with Wang Yaokei? Qin Yang's eyes fixed. His eyes were deep and cold, and the young gangster was frightened. No, really not. Liu Sun and Chen Jian were not in the gambling house that day. It was brother Huang who was watching the gambling house. He was the one you killed in front of the door. The young gangster whispered. According to the order of death 8 days ago, Wang Yaokei should have died the next day. Meng Feng whispered. So Wang Yaokei didn't actually have any contact with Chen Jian and Liu Sun. Qin Yang frowned slightly. He originally thought that Wang Yaokei came to the gambling house to gamble and might have had an intersection with Liu Sun and Chen Jian. In this way, the clue was interrupted again. You didn't lie. Meng Feng still wanted to cheat. It's true that I was not only in the gambling house that day, but also many other people. They all saw it with their own eyes. The green-skinned gangster said anxiously. Then let's go. Since the clue was interrupted, Qin Yang didn't want to waste time here anymore. After he and Meng Feng left, Maybe Ocean's eyes became fierce and cold again. Sixth brother, who is that guy? Maybe Ocean asked coldly. The name he reported outside is Song Lingzi. The green-skinned gangster whispered. Song Lingzi is not a normal name. Is this guy a Taoist priest? Maybe Ocean looked suspicious. He first asked his men to clean up the messy gambling house. He went out to find out who this Song Lingzi was. After a day of investigation, seeing that the sky was getting dark, Qin Yang felt that there would probably be no new clues if he continued to investigate. He made an appointment with Meng Feng to meet tomorrow, and the two separated. Qin Yang went to his own residence. Meng Feng thought about going to the county government to work overtime tonight and reading the case file again. After this day's investigation, he found that Qin Yang had been looking for connections between the dead. Although Meng Feng didn't know the reason, he still wanted to help Qin Yang find more clues. But when he returned to the yamen, he ran into a black-faced man. Hello, Captain Zhang. Meng Feng bowed gently. There are 7 major captains in the county government. The black-faced man is called Zhang Han, one of them. Meng Feng, I heard that you have made progress recently and can accompany the people of the patrol department to investigate cases. Zhang Han smiled. Captain Zhang, you are joking. It's all arranged by the superiors. Meng Feng was neither humble nor arrogant. He knew that Zhang Han and Maybe Ocean had a good relationship. Yangqing Casino was able to operate because of Zhang Han's face and didn't go to clean up the place. But today, Meng Feng obviously broke this rule. Well, do a good job. I'm old. Maybe it will be your turn to be a captain someday. Zhang Han patted Meng Feng on the shoulder and turned to leave. Meng Feng heard the implication of Zhang Han's words, but didn't care. In his heart, he thought that it was enough to have a clear conscience. Qin Yang's sudden return home naturally surprised Kan He and Xiao Huan. Master, I didn't buy any extra vegetables today. I'll go to the vegetable market now. Xiao Huan said embarrassedly. It's so late now. There are no people in the vegetable market. I won't try your cooking tonight. Let's go to the restaurant. Qin Yang said with a smile. The three locked the door and went to find a restaurant to eat. Braised pork elbow, stir-fried beef tripe, braised fish. Xiao Huan specially ordered some dishes that Qin Yang liked to eat. Qin Yang and Kan He also had a few drinks. Master, now the master is gone. Have you thought about when to marry a good girl? Kan He said suddenly. Qin Dongsheng's regret before was that he didn't see Qin Yang marry and have children. Now that he has come to the stable environment of Shan County, Kan He feels that he should really consider the marriage. Why is it here again? Qin Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. Before it was Li Tong, now it's Kan He's turn. In fact, it's not their fault. This is the concept of this era. Getting married and starting a family is a must. In Kan He's eyes, Qin Yang is not only good at martial arts, but also has an official position in the Sky Patrol. With such conditions, what girl can't he find? The Sky Patrol is busy with a case recently. Let's talk about it after I finish these days. Qin Yang can only use the tactic of procrastination. Xiao Huan covered her mouth and laughed secretly. Even she knew that Qin Yang was making excuses. Master, then I will help you find it first. Anyway, I have nothing to do in the mansion every day. Kan He said softly. Okay. Qin Yang agreed reluctantly. The next day, Qin Yang just arrived at the yamen and saw Meng Feng, who looked anxious. 2 more people died. Lord Qin. Meng Feng took Qin Yang's hand and walked towards the street. Who are the dead? Qin Yang asked. The dead are a couple. The man is Zushi and the woman is Ma Hang. The 2 were newly married and ran a calligraphy and painting shop. This morning, they were found dead at home by neighbors. Meng Feng quickly explained the situation. Has any property been stolen? Qin Yang asked. I don't know. I just received the news and didn't go to the scene. Meng Feng shook his head. The 2 ran all the way and came to a mansion. A large number of people gathered in front of the door and pointed and talked. A dozen yamen runners maintained order. Meng Feng took Qin Yang directly inside. In the room, 2 bloody bodies were lying on the ground. The stench was very strong. Captain Meng, I leave it to you. Several yamen runners who were in the room saw Meng Feng, hurriedly greeted him, and left in a panic. This death was too tragic. Moreover, considering what happened a few days ago, everyone would be scared. Qin Yang looked at the 2 bodies carefully. Meng Feng went to investigate the situation in the room. Soon, Meng Feng walked up to Qin Yang and said, there is no property in the house. Well, look at the 2 bodies. When I was in the room before, I felt that some of the bodies were not right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Now I finally understand that these 2 bodies should have been scratched and rotten by tools like steel claws. It looks bloody, but there are no signs of biting. The bodies of Liu San, Chen Jian, and Wu Fang are all like this. The property of these people was also stolen. I feel that the evil spirit may not have killed so many people. I think someone is taking advantage of the situation to confuse the audience. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. He had suspected this before, but he confirmed it only after seeing the 2 bloody bodies. Meng Feng's face changed slightly. He carefully observed the 2 bodies. He found that it was the same as Qin Yang said. It looked bloody and messy, but there were no signs of biting. This person is quite professional. There are no signs of infiltration, which means he is a master of Qin Gang. Qin Yang said. Chapter 73 Questioning. This kind of case has never happened in Shan City before. It may be a thief who came from other places. He heard about this case by chance and began to imitate the murder. Meng Feng said in a serious tone. When Qin Yang said this, he immediately understood. This seems to be one case, but it is actually 2 cases. Then I don't know. It's not my business to track down the thief. You should do your best. Qin Yang smiled. Well, I must report this as soon as possible. Meng Feng stood up. If the murderer is not caught, more innocent people may die. He walked out of the room and asked the Yamen runners to notify the coroner to come and collect the bodies. Qin Yang also returned to the government office with Meng Feng. Meng Feng reported the matter to his boss, the head of the police, Zhang Dahu. This person is quite famous in Shan City. Outsiders call him the fierce tiger. His style of doing things is cruel and ruthless. The prisoners who fall into his hands have never failed to confess. Those who don't confess will not survive in prison. After Zhang Dahu knew about it, he sent another constable to investigate the case. As for Meng Feng, he continued to follow Qin Yang to solve the case of Wu Da. Meng Feng, if Wu Fang was not killed by the evil spirit, then Lu Wenchen should be the last person killed by the evil spirit. I remember that you moved a lot of things back from his shop. The things I have been looking for may be in there, Qin Yang said in a deep voice. As the case was split into two cases, the fog in his heart gradually dissipated. He didn't care about the connection between the previous few people. Anyway, he would find the things that might be contaminated by the evil spirit first. In the warehouse. I'll take you there now. Meng Feng acted vigorously, but when he arrived at the door of the warehouse, he was stopped by the old constable guarding the warehouse. Meng Feng, you can go in. This person is not from our Yamen, so he can't go in. The constable said in a deep voice. Chen Heyo, this is Mr. Qin from the patrol department. Meng Feng introduced. Old Fang, who was guarding the warehouse, shook his head and said, Meng Feng, the Yamen's rules are like this, and I can't break the rules. Besides, if something is missing, it will be difficult for me to explain. With a snap, Meng Feng slammed his badge on the table. Old Fang, you can confess now, right? Meng Feng whispered. Old Fang shook his head helplessly, took out the key to the warehouse, and opened the door for Meng Feng. The things you want are in the corner, Old Fang said. Thank you. Meng Feng clasped his fists and took Qin Yang into the warehouse. This kid is young and full of energy, and he will suffer a big loss sooner or later. Old Fang sighed slightly. In Meng Feng, he saw the shadow of his youth. But sometimes, passion may not be able to change anything. In the warehouse, Meng Feng looked at the open box in the corner and frowned slightly. A lot of things are missing. At that time, he was involved in the seizure of Lu Wenchen's store, and he roughly knew how much stuff there was. But the things in the box were obviously missing half. You eat half, and the government eats half. It's quite particular. Qin Yang smiled. He took out an account book from the alley. Soon, he found an important information. Look, 8 days ago, Wang Yaoke came to Lu Wenchen's pawn shop and pawned a bracelet. This bracelet was pawned for 25 taels of silver. No wonder Wang Yaoke suddenly became rich. Qin Yang said softly. Then Wang Yaoke's home is not far from Wu Da. That night, Wang Yaoke might have wanted to steal something from Wu Da's home. He happened to see Wu Da being killed by the evil spirit and secretly stole the bracelet from Wu Da's home. Meng Feng speculated along with Qin Yang's thoughts. It is very likely, according to the order of death. First, Wu Da, Wang Yaoke, and the pawn shop owner Lu Wenchen. Then this bracelet was taken back to the government warehouse by you, which gave the evil spirit no chance to harm people. Qin Yang smiled. Then where is this bracelet now? Meng Feng frowned slightly. These things collected from the pawn shop are all kinds of strange things. Look for it. It's better not to be taken by some unlucky guy. Qin Yang said gloatingly. The two looked through the things in the box. A few bracelets were indeed found, but they were obviously cheap. Generally, pawn shops bargain for half the price, or even lower. Wang Yaoke can pawn for 25 taels of silver, and this bracelet is worth at least 50 taels. These bracelets, I estimate, are only worth a few taels of silver. Meng Feng shook his head. It seems that the people in your government have sharp eyes. They only pick the good things. Qin Yang smiled. These guys are greedy. Meng Feng said disdainfully. Obviously, he has long felt ashamed of this behavior. Go and ask who took the bracelets away. Qin Yang locked the box again. When Meng Feng walked out to ask Liu Fang, who had entered the warehouse to take the things from the pawn shop in the past few days, this old man naturally didn't know anything. Anyway, he didn't know anything. No matter what Meng Feng said, Liu Fang just didn't say anything. Meng Feng had no way to deal with this old guy who was stubborn and only wanted to protect himself. Qin Yang shook his head helplessly and walked directly to Liu Fang. "What are you doing? This is the government office. You don't want to do anything." Old Fang was so scared that he kept backing away. He had worked in the government office for decades and had seen all kinds of people. Qin Yang's eyes were cold and deep, and he looked like a person who would kill without blinking an eye. He was not easy to mess with. "If you don't tell me, someone will die. When someone dies, I will report you on behalf of the Xianjian division. They say that you knew about it, but didn't report it, which led to the death of someone in your government office. Even if you can clear yourself of the relationship in the end, I don't believe you can still stay in the government office." Qin Yang said indifferently. To deal with an old timer like Old Fang, the method is actually very simple. Just find a way to drag him into the water. You and I are both old, and we just want to retire peacefully. Young man, don't be so ruthless. Old Fang got anxious. We young people are always ruthless in doing things. Anyway, someone will definitely die tonight. You should be prepared to take the blame, Qin Yang said seriously. As he said that, he gave Meng Feng a look. The two stopped talking and walked out directly. Du Zilan. He should have taken it. Old Fang gritted his teeth. "I hope you don't guess wrong. Otherwise, you will still be blamed." Qin Yang's voice came in. Old Fang sighed. He just wanted to live a peaceful retirement in the government office. How could he be involved in such a thing? Qin Yang and Meng Feng left the government office and went to a tea shop to drink tea. "Sir Qin, Du Zilan and I are both under the command of Captain Zhang. This person has no ability, but he is eloquent and smooth, and he is deeply trusted by Captain Zhang." Meng Feng talked about Du Zilan's situation. "People like this often do better than you," Qin Yang said softly. "This is the way the world is." Meng Feng didn't want to talk about these things, which made people upset. Chapter 74, Constable. The sky was getting darker. The setting sun was like blood, coloring the clouds. Nansu Restaurant. This is a restaurant located in the outer city of Shan. Even if it is not as luxurious as those in the inner city, it is still the best in the outer city. The atmosphere in the private room was lively. A group of constables and yamen runners were toasting each other. "Constable Du, I toast you a glass." "What's the point of calling you Constable Du? When the assessment comes next year, you will be Constable Du." "Ha ha ha. I'm stupid and said the wrong thing." "Brothers, toast to Constable Du." Several yamen runners stood up and toasted today's protagonist Du Zilan. Du Zilan is indeed good looking, with handsome features and a height of 7 feet. He waved his hand and said, "Thank you brothers for thinking highly of me, but you can't say this casually. What's wrong with saying it? We all know it. In the entire Yamen, except Brother Du, who else is qualified to be a constable?" "That's right, we don't accept anyone else being a constable." Several people shouted. "Haha, then I accept your kind words." Du Zilan raised his glass and drank it all. After an incense stick, Du Zilan felt the urge to urinate. He said something to everyone, then went downstairs and walked towards the toilet in the backyard of the restaurant. Just as he casually pushed open the wooden door of the toilet, he was shocked. A pale middle-aged man stood in the toilet, looking at him stiffly. Those eyes were very dull, as if they were painted on, without any anger. "I can't go home." The man made a very dry sound. With a snap, Du Zilan closed the wooden door directly and went to the toilet next to him. He muttered, "These rotten drunkards, they don't even know where their home is." He didn't take it to heart. After going to the toilet, he went back to the private room to drink. It was late at night, and after 3 rounds of wine, everyone gradually dispersed from the restaurant. Even though Du Zilan had martial arts skills, he was still a little drunk. He said goodbye to his colleagues and went home alone. Even if he was the only one on the dark street, Du Zilan was not afraid at all. As long as he was wearing this outfit, who would dare to mess with him? Papa. Suddenly, there was a hurried sound of footsteps from behind. Du Zilan didn't care at first, and he was still dreaming of becoming a head constable next year. "I've made a lot of money recently. If I go and lobby for the head constable and the chief clerk, I think this will be a sure thing. When I become a head constable, I can walk sideways in Shan City." Du Zilan couldn't help but smile. "Papa." There were more footsteps from behind. This made Du Zilan frown. The footsteps seemed to have been following him for a long time. He didn't walk fast, and according to reason, he should be able to surpass him soon. He turned around subconsciously. The street was dark and silent, and there was no one behind him. I don't know why. This dark street made him feel creepy, as if something was looking at him. But there should be no one on this dark street. Maybe I heard it wrong, because I was drunk. Duzilin muttered to himself, and walked towards home faster. Besides, Duzilin returned to his home. This made him breathe a sigh of relief. It seems that I really thought too much. Duzilin shook his head. He opened the door with the key. After entering, there was a yard, and the house was facing the door. Duzilin felt his mouth was a little dry, and wanted to go into the house to drink water. When he pushed open the door, his eyes suddenly widened. A man stood in his room, staring at him blankly. I can't go home. The man repeated that sentence. Duzilin was so scared that his scalp numbed, and his hands and feet were sweating. This man was the weird man he met in the toilet before. He is evil. Duzilin had heard similar legends in the government office. This is the darkest, most brutal and most evil thing. And he was entangled by this ghost thing. Duzilin still had a trace of reason, and wanted to turn around, and leave the house. Bang. The wooden door closed strangely. Bang, bang, bang. Duzilin kicked the wooden door frantically, but the door didn't move at all. He didn't dare to look back, but he could feel it. A malicious intent was getting closer and closer to him. I don't want to die yet. Duzilin wailed in despair. Boom! A huge force came from outside the wooden door. The wooden door cracked fiercely. Duzilin was not prepared at all, and was blown away by this huge force, and then hit a cold and stiff body. Bang! Duzilin felt as if his internal organs were about to be knocked out. He fell to the ground, and kept coughing up blood. The middle-aged man was also knocked back 5 or 6 steps. His stiff eyes looked at the door. A tall young man with a long knife on his back walked in. Finally I found you, Qin Yang said lightly. After he knew that the bracelet was on Duzilin, he did not rush to act, but just followed in secret, waiting for the moment when the evil spirit came out to harm people, and then took action. I can't go home. I can't go home. The middle-aged man kept repeating this sentence. His face quickly became vicious and gloomy. Corpse spots appeared on his hands, and sharp thorns grew out, emitting a cold and foul smell. Going home? Qin Yang's eyes condensed. Then I will take you home. He was about to draw out the Lingai knife. The middle-aged man suddenly turned into a white shadow and disappeared. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew left. Qin Yang suddenly pulled out the Lingai knife and slashed it diagonally. With a clang, the claws of the weird middle-aged man just touched the Lingai knife, and sparks burst out. Qin Yang swept along with the situation, and the evil spirit formed by the broken edge divine ability instantly cut the skin on the surface of the claws. A weird breath followed the Lingai knife, and wanted to infect Qin Yang. Qin Yang quickly circulated the turtle snake key. After it turned into a raging snake, the cold and deep turtle snake energy instantly swallowed up the strange breath, and at the same time, a layer of dark blue light was attached to the surface of the Lingai sword. Pyo-Jun Forest Force. Puff, puff! The Lingai sword turned into layers of cold and tight knife light, slashing at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had a vicious face, and his hands formed chaotic shadows, stabbing Qin Yang frantically. Clang clang clang! Crazy collision and killing. The knife energy that spread out continuously cut everything in the room into pieces. Vase, table, chair, stool, bed. Even Duzilin, who fell to the ground, was almost affected by the knife light, and he was so scared that he hurriedly hid in the corner. After nearly 100 moves, Qin Yang urged the turtle snake energy in his body. The deep breath like the sea turned into a violent and surging force. With a bang, a dark blue knife light slashed out. Puff! The middle-aged man wailed, and one of his left arms was cut off by Qin Yang's knife. At the same time, Qin Yang gathered strength in his left hand, twisting his entire arm like steel bars, and delivered a thunder palm to the middle-aged man's chest. Bang! The middle-aged man's chest collapsed under the thunder palm, and his body flew backwards. There was another loud noise. The wall was smashed to pieces. Qin Yang grinned, holding up the Lingai knife, and chased after him. Chapter 75 Memories. The middle-aged man was chopped out of the room by Qin Yang's sword, and fell into the backyard, struggling to stand up. A gust of wind suddenly hit. The Lingai sword pierced his head directly. At this moment, the middle-aged man no longer had any viciousness, and his expression was filled with a trace of unwillingness and nostalgia. I want to go home. He looked at Qin Yang, and his figure gradually turned into white smoke and dissipated. Go home. Qin Yang was slightly stunned, turned around and walked into the room. Cough cough cough. Duzilan heard that there was no movement outside, and was about to get up, to see what was going on. Bang. Qin Yang walked into the room, and kicked him directly. Duzilan was about to scold, but seeing the other party's cold and deep eyes, he was too scared to speak. Where is the bracelet? Qin Yang said lightly. Bracelet? What bracelet? Duzilan was stunned. The bracelet you took out from the storehouse. You don't have to tell me. Anyway, if the evil spirit entangles me again, I won't show up so soon. Qin Yang sneered. Duzilan heard this, and hurriedly took out an emerald green bracelet from his arms. Sir, will I be fine now? Duzilan asked fearfully. After experiencing tonight, he didn't want to be entangled by these ghosts again. I don't know. If you don't do bad things in your life, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door in the middle of the night. Qin Yang put away the bracelet, left a word, and turned away. Duzilan seemed to be touched, and stayed there in a daze. After Qin Yang walked out of Duzilan's mansion, he met Meng Feng at a corner of the street. I killed this evil spirit. Remember to write a closing report for me. Qin Yang smiled. Don't worry, Sir Qin, I will go back and drive it out for you all night. Meng Feng laughed. Then I'll leave first. I still have to send this bracelet back to the patrol department to see how to deal with it. Qin Yang said goodbye and left. The next morning, Qin Yang returned to the Sky Patrol Division, entered the demon slaying hall, and handed the bracelet to Han Qianayu. What should we do with this bracelet, Director Han? Qin Yang asked. Take it out and burn it. Han Qianayu picked up the bracelet and took a closer look. So simple. Qin Yang was stunned. Well, the evil spirit that parasitized the bracelet should have been killed by you. Now there may only be a little remnant left in it, and it is not very harmful. You can even sell it. Han Qianayu said lightly. That's not necessary. Qin Yang shook his head. He picked up the bracelet, returned to his courtyard, found a brazier, and was about to burn the bracelet. Hey, what are you doing, kid? What are you doing with such a beautiful bracelet? Song Lingzi slid down from the tree trunk with a white silk hanging on it. This young master is rich and willful. Qin Yang lit the fire directly. If you don't want it, give it to me. Such a beautiful bracelet. My junior sister will definitely like it. Song Lingzi dodged and snatched Qin Yang's bracelet. You even snatched the things of a dead person. Do you have any morals left? Qin Yang complained. What do you mean by the things of a dead person? Well, this bracelet seems to have a deep obsession. It should have been contaminated by an evil spirit. Song Lingzi frowned. Well, that evil spirit was killed by me. But can you sense what that obsession is? Qin Yang asked curiously. He felt that the middle-aged man kept shouting to go home before he died. It may be possible. Do you want to try it? Song Lingzi said with a smile. What do you mean? Qin Yang was stunned. I will draw out the obsession of the bracelet, and you should be able to see some pictures. As for what you see, I can't guarantee it. After all, this obsession is too fragmented, and the picture may not be complete. Song Lingzi shrugged. Try it. It sounds fun. Qin Yang became interested. He also wanted to see how this middle-aged man became evil. Let's start. Song Lingzi bit his finger and squeezed out a drop of blood on the bracelet. Return my soul with my blood. The bracelet began to emit a strange light. A very sad emotional fluctuation emanated from the bracelet. Qin Yang closed his eyes, feeling this emotion, and a series of clear but unfamiliar pictures flashed through his mind. Gliu was the name of the middle-aged man. He was born in a remote mountain village and had a wife, children and old mother at home. In order to make a living, he had no choice but to leave his hometown and come to Shan County City to make a living. In a blink of an eye, a few years passed. Gliu partnered with others to do some small business and made a little money. He was planning to return home in glory. For this reason, he went alone to buy an expensive bracelet to give to his wife who was working hard at home. As a result, not long after he walked out of Shan City, he was knocked unconscious and beaten to death by his partner, who was seeing him off. The partners should not have done such a thing as killing and robbing. After killing someone, they panicked and snatched Gliu's package. They didn't even touch the body, but hurriedly buried it and ran away. As a result, that night, Gliu's body was dug out by a group of hungry wild wolves and was bitten to pieces. A bracelet fell out of Gliu's body. Gliu's resentment, and various extreme emotions gathered in this bracelet. Gradually, these extreme emotions turned into evil spirits. A few days later, Wu Da, who was returning to Shan City from the countryside, happened to pass by this forest. He picked up a very beautiful bracelet in this forest. Wu Da was greedy, and after picking up the bracelet, he was almost tripped by something. Wu Da took a look and found that it was a corpse. He kicked it directly and then left with the bracelet happily. When Qin Yang sorted out the images that flashed through his mind, he sighed slightly. So, he really just wanted to go home. It's a pity that he met the wrong person and will never go back. Song Lingzi could also see these scenes, but he was not as emotional as Qin Yang. The attitude of the spiritual master towards life is very indifferent. Of course, except for his own life. This guy's really miserable. He has turned into an evil spirit, but he can't take revenge on the murderer. Song Lingzi laughed. Evil spirits like this, that are residing in a certain object are also very restricted and cannot move freely. At the beginning, Gliu's partner did not take Gliu's bracelet away, but it was a blessing in disguise. Qin Yang's eyes flickered, and his hands exuded a dark glow and cold internal energy, which extinguished the fire in the brazier. Then, he stood up and put the bracelet away. Hey, if you don't want to burn the bracelet, give it to me. Such a good thing, you don't want to embezzle it, do you? Song Lingzi screamed. Qin Yang said softly, forget it. I will find someone to send the bracelet back to Gliu's hometown later. Okay, you are such a kind person. Song Lingzi shook his head speechlessly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.